Listen,
Right, we're live, everyone, so if we could do a bit of hush. Right, welcome committee members and staff and members of the public to our first committee meeting of the year and our very first committee meeting under our new structure, which is exciting. So I like to just remind everyone that this new structure came about from a desire for efficient use of council time and resource and for really effective decision making on behalf of our community. So I think it's important to keep that front of mind as we move through this year and the balance of the triennium. So yeah, yay. The recording of this meeting is being held here in the supper room, Waihinga Centre, Martinborough Town Hall. It is being live streamed this morning and will be available to view on Council's YouTube channel. In the event of an emergency, there are emergency exits, both the door that Mike and Jim have just come through at the front and here behind me. If we do need to evacuate, we can evacuate out to the playground at the front. And please remain in the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. Now, it would be lovely to start the morning with a karakia. And may I ask, perhaps, Councillor Gray, would you like to do one of ours or your?
I have one here, if that's okay. But I have practiced the pronunciation a little bit better than what's. Cool. All right. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mākina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai. E he aki ana te atakura, he teo, he huka, he hauhu, te hei mauri.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. We have apologies from Councillor Elams and Ms Edwards this morning. Don't think we've got any others. Do I have a mover to accept? Councillor Gray and a seconder, Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say no. The motion is carried. Do we have any conflicts of interest this morning?
yeah, I have a conflict of interest to one of the items that's in the public excluded section.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's next week.
Next week.
Next week, not this week.
Next week.
You don't have,
Right.
we don't have any public excluded.
You're quite right, councillors. Thank you. Jumping ahead of.
Wondering.
I was wondering that I hadn't read my agenda correctly.
Look forward to this week if you want.
Okay, so that moves us to our public participation. So can I please invite Miss Joelle Thompson to come and join us at the table just up here. Good morning, Joelle. So I just need to let you know that public participation at a committee is quite a formal situation. So you do have 5 minutes to speak. That includes any time for councillors to ask questions of clarification as well. So it's always handy to leave a minute or two at the end for that to happen.
Amy's been really clear with that.
Wonderful. Amy will give you a wave when we're getting near the end.
I've got my time.
Perfect. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me to speak about this submission I wrote following the meeting with Martin and a couple of other councillors to last year in Dublin Street, which was great. It was a freezing night and a freezing walk, and it was really appreciated by the 10 or 12 of us to have the mayor and other councillors actually come and listen to us and subsequently spend quite a lot of money fixing the surface of our road. Unfortunately, we've now got some even worse potholes and a lot of patches and a lot of water leakages, which is part of a much wider infrastructural problem nationwide, and clearly in Wellington and the Wairarapa water is obviously a major issue right now. And in preparing the submission that Martin invited me to write back then, I didn't really want to focus heavily on that because it is being exacerbated by trucks and a higher volume of trucks and speeding. And that's really what I'm here to talk about. So I wrote the submission last year to propose a permanent reduction in the speed limit on Dublin Street. I would love to see it at 30 kilometres, which is what my submission suggests. And just as a segue, when the road repairs were being done following that meeting, the trucks had to go at 30 and so did everybody else. And the decline in noise on the street was absolutely incredible. I own a house on that road. It's quite far back from the road because I have a nice large section in the front and the back. But even so, it is horrendously noisy. And for the 4 years I've been there, it's got more so. And it's not only me who find that. So when, with a limit of 30, I believe the road will be a lot safer, and particularly because there's a primary school on it, and also a lot quieter, as the roadworks actually showed. The evidence, I believe that over the past 4 years, the volume of traffic on Dublin Street has increased significantly. And that did come up. I haven't stood there and done a traffic count, and I don't have a traffic count from back then. So it is anecdotal, but also in discussion with other neighbours. The volume of trucks and the type of trucks is definitely, in my view, also increased, especially logging trucks, and with larger logs, longer trucks and heavier ones, which would appear to be compressing the road where it's weak anyway and making it even worse, as evidenced by many potholes. Waka Kotahi has assessed a speed limit of 30 k's per hour, and Tonkin and Taylor recommend 40 k's an hour, which is what we have at present in the school zone, which actually does constitute the majority of the longest section of Dublin Street. The problem clearly is it's a very wide street and it's a very long street, and it's very hard to not pick up speed for anybody when they're on that road. When I drive back from the city on Friday night about 7:30, 8 o'clock, because I'm in the city 2 days a week, I experiment myself and do between 45 and 50 k's an hour. And I find even with a small volume of traffic on the road at that time, there is a real pressure behind me to step on the gas and go faster. It is not good. I've already written the proposal, so really I just wanted to take up the opportunity to promote it further in this forum. And I would love to see a diversion of the bypass and also a lower permanent speed limit on that road, not just in the school zone and not just during school hours, for the safety of everybody in this individual street. Thank you.
Thank you, Joelle. Councillors,
Yes, thanks, Joel. Just one question. Your point 5, I propose a street redirection of the heavy traffic bypass. Unfortunately, with all our towns, of course, we put in a bypass and then people build around them, and West Street on Greytown is a prime example of that over many years. Where are you proposing that we redirect? Because all we're doing is shifting the problem to another part. And as you rightly pointed out, the street is very wide, which was built specifically for that reason, for a bypass. So unless you're inflating a new road on the outside of Greytown, which of course.
Well, that would be another discussion. Personally, I would love to see the logs go on the train, since the train is there, but they've still got to get to.
You've still got to get to the train, yeah. So
the only current street that I can see there being a logistical the smoothest transition would be to go, it's like coming into the village, turn left into Princess Street, right into Princess, left into Dublin, and right into Roberts Street immediately, which still takes them past the school, but not past the front gate of the school.
then it'll take them down the other residential area, down a narrower street.
Yes, it will. So it's
So all you're doing is shifting the problem to a street that's even less designed for it.
I understand that, which is why my predominant submission here is a lower speed permanently and for the whole street. It's a much stronger argument. I completely understand what you're saying.
That's wonderful. We'll take one more quick question. We are at the end of our time.
Thanks,
Councillor.
Carol, for your time. Understand your concerns. Just one point here at the top, you've got, as a residential zone that has morphed over time into a heavy truck bypass. Well, I've had my licence for 37 years and that was a heavy truck bypass back then. So I'm not sure how over what time you think it's morphed.
Okay, well, I guess I'm talking longer back and perhaps I needed to do a bit more research on that. It's been preying on my mind, but that came up at the meeting we had last year where Martin, the mayor, mentioned that the street was owned for a long.
There was I had my childhood sitting in the passenger seat of a truck around here from before I could walk, and it was a heavy traffic bypass as long as I can remember. It was always designated as that. So as far as I know.
The school is quite old though, and it's not a great place for trucks to be doing trucks in the volume.
Okay, well, thank you, Joelle. We'll leave it there and we'll move on. Thank you very much for joining us, Joelle.
Thank you.
Jim, come and join us. Yep. Jim and Mike, are you presenting together or do you both have separate submissions? You're just perfect. Thank you. Right, same reminder, I'll only give it once, just 5 minutes, and that includes time as well. When you're ready, Jim, and Amy will give you a wee wave when you've got about a minute to go.
Council said they were to have a first principles rates review. Is the first principle to keep returning rates low? To have one, the information must be correct and council must have an open mind so as to have a fair and equitable rating model. Unfortunately, a lot of the information given has been incorrect and heavily biased against rural, especially farmers. So the rating review is a total sham. It is no wonder that the public were excluded from the rating review workshops. It was never meant to be transparent. Councillors were advised that they could not use population in the calculation for the rating model. But at the second deliberation meeting, their rating consultant stated that they could use population on a targeted rate, which has left it too late to make a change. Council have paid many thousands of dollars to have this consultant. The consultant used section 14B Local Government Ratings Act 2002 to say council cannot use population on the general rate. The Act states what categories can be rated differentially. It does not state what the differential can be based on. We have said the rate is on rateable rating units, but the differential is based on the population split between urban and rural. At the same meeting, a staff member had done some work on rural. They had split rural into lifestyle and farmers, which showed farmers paying 28.4% of the total rate. The staff member stated that it's similar to the 30-70 split they have been hearing. We have said the population split is about 70% urban, 30% rural. They have used rateable units for population, as one would assume it correlates to population. The population split at the last census was about 66% urban, 34% rural, of which I guess about half or less are farmers. That means 17% paying 28.4% of the total rate. The rateable units are about 54% urban, 46% rural. Rural does not have about half the population of South Wairarapa. Going by the rateable units, it overestimates rural population by about 35% and underestimates urban population by about 18%. Council also said that they did not take population into account, but as it has worked out, population unintentionally is taken into account. The total rate is not the way to do a comparison, as it compares apples with pears, as farmers don't have water, sewage or rubbish collection. But when you compare the functions that council pool fund that exclude water and sewage, rubbish collection, footpaths and infrastructure is going by council's example, all rating units will pay a UAGC of 477. The rest is by capital value. The capital value component in Featherston average residential is 470,000, pay $702. Martinborough 650,000, paying 1,448. Greytown 725,000, paying 1,560. Whereas a farm, 5 million, will pay 7,466. Farmers only have a large capital value because of the business.
Jim, can I just interrupt you for just 1 second? You've got a minute left, so I just want to double check. Do you want to allow councillors to take this as read and be able to ask you questions?
Well, we can take it as read, right?
Or would you like to keep reading?
Well, are we going to have any questions?
Do we have any questions at this point round this?
I've got, Jim, you've been coming here for, well, as long as I've been on council, telling us how we've got it all wrong all the time. Not once have you said, oh, we've got something right in 4 years. So I was just wondering, I'll finish my question. I was just wondering, given that you have all the answers here, when are you actually going to stand for election and actually sit around the table to make the decisions? If you keep lecturing us all the time.
Let's just be careful with the questions we ask.
I'm asking a legitimate question.
You can't just stick to what we've got.
I haven't said what you have done right, because I only have 5 minutes and I can only put in what needs to be put in this wrong.
Is there anyone around the table who would have another question for Jim based on his presentations? Councillor.
I don't have a question, Jim, but I'd certainly like the time to take the time to be able to read through what I spoke to today. So I don't have any questions at this stage.
I'd like
read it, but
Councillor Olds, I don't have a question, but I do regard the last comment that is legible on this paper, accusing us of being corrupt for the country, as being contrary to the standing order.
Yeah, so just a reminder for everyone for standing orders when it comes to public participation. There are ways that that public participation or the topics can be declined. And one of them is if the speaker is being repetitious, disrespectful or offensive. And I have to say that suggesting there is either corruption or incompetency certainly verges on that. So we just need to be mindful of that next time, please. So if there's no more questions for Jim, we'll move to Mike's presentation this morning.
Thank you. I'm supporting Mr. Headley on the issue of equity and fairness in the rating system. I believe that Mr. Headley has highlighted the issues that are important. They are a challenge to you people. They're a challenge to lots of local authorities in this country. It's very sad. Rural New Zealand has been disadvantaged since 1969 with the reform of local government. Effectively, rural New Zealand has been sidelined. That's why I support what Jim is saying. It's critical for the well-being, the economic well-being, among other things, of this country, that we get it right. So why should one particular part of the community be disadvantaged in the way in which Jim has highlighted?
That you're finished, Mr. Gray. Any questions for Mr. Gray?
Not so much a question. Thanks, Mike and Jim, for coming. But I like yourself have a few concerns over the way things are split up and whatnot with the councils. Not just our council. I think probably every council in New Zealand has issues that can be worked on. I appreciate you guys coming in and taking the time to show your care.
Now, Jim, I've got Pauline down as a presenter.
Pauline is not available unfortunately, and she's asked me to present her.
So this isn't the first time that you've had Pauline down to present and she has been unavailable. So I'm just going to confirm for a minute.
There's nothing in the standing orders that says that they have, the person wanting to speak can't be represented by somebody else.
So I think we sort of agree collectively that when we have public participation, the public participation needs to be by the person who is noted as speaking. Because if you're simply getting an extra 5 minutes of speaking time under the name of your wife, that's not really in the spirit of public participation.
Sorry, Jim, but just to clarify, was Pauline's submission also written down the same as yours? Because we can still take that.
Yeah.
So if you have that, we could take that. If you've got information, we'd be happy to take her submission and read through that as well.
Jim's presentation.
No.
No.
Signed by you as Pauline.
Oh.
You've got the wrong one.
You've got a different one.
We've got the one signed by Jim.
If you'd like to distribute Pauline's, we won't have a verbal presentation because Pauline's here, but if you distribute her written version, that would be fantastic.
And we're happy to take it.
Yeah.
It's very reasonable.
Thank you.
I feel that what I've presented and Pauline's presented are extremely important. And it is important that information given to you as councillors to make a decision is correct.
Thank you, Jim.
And not a pack of bloody lies.
Right. Thank you, Jim.
No, appreciate it.
Scurrilous, you know, I'm sick of the abuse.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah, so
No, I'm sitting up, asked and answered, right?
yeah, so again, Jim, just a reminder that you're welcome to present, but when you start, passing insults on either our consultant staff or councillors, we'll get to say no more. So thank you, and you are always both welcome, but we just need to be mindful of the language that we.
Well, what do you call incorrect information?
Right, so moving on from.
Chair, please, just
Thank you.
raise an issue here.
Boss has raised it.
The same sort of abuse comes to us every time. And at what stage do we say that's it? And do we have the right to decline somebody willing to do presentations if they get every single time we are abused?
A5, we need to refer to A5.
So,
Janice, if you could give us a little bit on that.
so there is, well, hopefully we don't need to go as far as a report, but it's, speaking orders 15.2 is clear that the speaker is being repetitious, disrespectful or offensive and has previously spoken on the same issue. There is discretion of the chair to decline public participation. So it will be mindful of that going forward.
Yes, well, could I just say, I would really like Jim to be able to present, but I do think that there has to be a change in the language because I object in court.
Yeah.
Competent and deceptive.
Deceptive, all the other words, it's just,
Very.
We've spoken to that today, and I would hope that Jim and any other presenter will take that on board for future. Actions from public participation. Are there any actions that the committee members want to raise with officers?
Can I,
So we'll start with Councillor Gray, she was first in there.
Just to go back to the first presenter that we had around the speeds down Dublin Street. I'd like to know if there's been any exploration into alternative traffic calming measures down there, whether there's what do you call it, little islands that sort of come out from the side that just slow things down.
Refuge islands.
Yeah.
There's speed humps down there now, isn't there? Opposite school.
Speed humps, but I think the issue with the speed humps is that they increase the noise from the trucks.
The trucks, they can call.
Yeah, and I can get saying earlier, Woody, about the trucks having always gone down there, but they are bigger now and there's a lot more.
Problem
Well, probably got too, but if you start seeing those bigger trucks down some of those other roads and on the side of the road.
And we also spoke about it
It is a
in the,
wide road.
we spoke about it in the master planning about another bypass, but that's long term, isn't it, Russell?
Yeah,
So I think it's about what we do in the meantime.
yeah, so in the meantime, I don't think we've got the appetite to build a whole new bypass road, but certainly having some things on the existing road that encourage slowing.
Just like to throw to Mr. Corbett quickly to see if he's got any comments, because there has been quite a lot of work done recently in Dublin Street. So Mr. Corbett.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. I think the use of chicanes and speed bumps, and even the use of partial lower speed zones on a street like that does generate more noise. Trucks going down the gears to slow down in portions of the road, it creates that horrendous noise, and as do chicanes and speed bumps. Personally, from what I know, I like the solution that was put forward to reduce the speed through the whole road. And that is certainly something that is within your gift if you chose to do that through the speed review. And the speed review, just to remind elected members, is currently paused as the government reframes the land transport rules. And both Carson and South Warwick Council have paused the process to wait and see what new direction we get from government. So there may be an opportunity to look at speed on that entire length of street. I don't think it would significantly slow down heavy traffic. So that's just another option that's available to you.
Stefan, just while you are speaking, Joelle mentioned the return of potholes and leaks. Would that the timeline of that, would that sort of be within the normal realm of what we would expect, given that those repairs only happened last year?
Well, I'm sorry, Chair, but I don't know.
I'm not aware.
Have a look and see whether the public submitter is talking about new
road systems,
or whether they are leaks that are on the repairs that were done. I don't have enough information.
That's lovely. Thank you, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I think, didn't we have 34 Dublin Street on our plan anyway?
No.
So that is now on pause.
Yeah.
So through to Jellicoe, is that right? So it was 30 from Princess or around the school to Jellicoe anyway with the.
It's in the school zone. It's just.
I don't think it was, because when we had a look at the map, I'm pretty sure we were looking at a whole area going down to 40 or 30 within the township. And then that road there, because of the school, I'm sure we had it at 30, but however, everything's on pause. But I just wanted to clarify, I believe that.
We need to check that, but
Yeah, if we just looked at.
consult on that, then Amanda, I presume, because it's a bylaw change, we would then have to go out and consult him. Because we can't just make arbitrary changes.
No, I'm pretty sure this was part of it.
If we didn't specific, because we got taken to task about the reduction of metal roads, saying that we didn't consult, yet we did, it was in the paper. Whereas I'm not sure we.
So is there a clarification point needed there, or are we just sort of going?
I think, Chair, what I'm hearing is we're being asked to explore what options might remain to make a speed across the whole length of the road through the speed review, or if it isn't possible to do the speed review, maybe another opportunity.
Okay.
We wouldn't want it to go right through Dublin Street. Dublin Street goes all the way to Shooting Butts. So that's not what we're. That's just the length of the bypass, which is what I believe through to Jellicoe.
So we've got a clarification happening there. We got any further questions on this topic outside of a clarification for that area? Councillor Olds.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm just wondering if Stefan, if any work's been done around the surface that we actually use on that road rather than aggregate, for instance, being hot mix, and often hot mix, even noticed coming into Martinborough, reduces the noise from traffic considerably by just simply the compound on the surface. Has any consideration been given to that?
I think it is hot mix, isn't it? Past the school.
I thought it's aggregate, isn't it? Yeah.
My understanding is that we use hot mix all the way down that section.
Okay.
But let me check before.
Yes,
Yes, thanks for that.
Just make sure.
Councillor Woodcock and then Mr Mayor.
Just a clarification, Stefan, seems like the noise of the truck seems to be one of the main issues down that road. Is there any work being looked into it about actually maybe making sure that water main, which seems to leak quite a bit on that road, is all stable, and if not, ripping it up, getting that section done for the water, and then actually resurfacing the whole road, because when you patch a road, doesn't matter how good you think you can do it, you're never going to get a smooth surface that doesn't create noise.
Through you, Chair. Look, this certainly also is the option for this table to decide to completely resurface the entire section of the bypass at a cost of X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars. That certainly is himself within that.
That's also just wondering if anything's been looked into the water main, though, because obviously that water main under there is creating trouble, leaking, which then creates patches, which creates noise.
Councillor, we have just spent $80,000 going over the bypass, the entire length of the bypass, and repairing any potholes, service channels, hydrants, and other faults through the entire section of road that were causing noise from traffic. So we will obviously continue to adhere to, you know, a maintenance regime across that section of road, including looking at the water leak.
Mr Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Just a throwaway line. I've often wondered why the bypass doesn't come down the street that Mitre 10 is on, because there's no school on the street. It's semi-industrial. There are far fewer residences, and just the way the street is created would require people to slow. But obviously that may or may not have been considered at the time. I don't know of the exercise Alistair referred to. At the meeting that Joelle referred to back last year, there was a presentation from a geologist, and the geologist had the opportunity to explore the substrata of the street when the water mains and several other things were last being dug up. Apparently, the substrata there is very unsuitable for a road that's going to take heavy trucks. So I suspect no matter what we do, we're based, you know, what's that old biblical thing about building on sand? Well, that's somewhat what we're doing here. My action point would be, I'm not quite sure that I recall events quite the same as Councillor Maynard. She is younger than me and therefore probably has a better memory. But if it's true that we only used our discretion to slow traffic on the school zone, then actually we're not necessarily that much better off. And I don't necessarily want to wait forever for the transport rules to change as well. And so I would have...
That was actually Councillor Plummer that said it was just in the school zone, and I said, no, it wasn't. It was like through the whole...
In case Councillor Plummer's right, what I would appreciate would be some advice on how we get some go forward quite quickly.
So
maybe outside of the...
So the overall action that I think that Mr Corbett is going to follow up is to see what can be done either within or outside of the traffic management review, and a clarification of exactly the section of road that we've specified a reduction to 30.
So what was in the review? Because it's already come to this table and been discussed. So I think we need to know what was in the draft, because we may already have a possible solution that we were looking at until, so rather than go and like now we want another 3 or 4 options again, you know, what was it that was actually come to with regards to the draft?
I think we've got that quite well captured. Yeah, in terms of action. Perfect.
So when do you want the report back?
Oh, when do we want that report?
I think through the chair, we just need to be aware that Stefan's team have already got a full work programme. So if you're asking for this to come back, then we will need to stop something else in order to make room for that investigation. So I need to understand how urgent a priority this is so that we can discuss what we stop doing in order to make room for this investigation to happen.
Can I just have some clarification if the investigation's already been done and we're just asking him to just clarify what it was that was what was sitting in the draft, because it's on hold, and then we know where we're at.
Then I suggest that you ask the CE to do that rather than tasking the
Okay.
DM with.
Okay.
So if we can task you with clarifying what, if anything, can be done at this point within the review or outside of it to address a possible change.
I can come back to you with what the review had in it. But then we would need to consider if there are things coming from that you want to do, when that would happen and how it would fit within the work programme.
But that's better.
That's good. It's lovely. Is there any other action points from any of the other speakers this morning? No? Perfect. We will move right along. Do committee members have any items for extraordinary business today? No, perfect. Right, so that takes us to move on to the decision report, and we will now be discussing item B1, Tau Wharanekau Pipeline Crossing Project Report. And I'd invite Ms Wells and Mr Corbett to the table to both highlight any notes from the report and for the purpose of asking any questions. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here to cover the chair. Good morning, everyone. So this is the this issue is not unfamiliar to you, and has been the subject of recommendations to this table. Obviously, management see this issue as being fairly urgent. We feel that we are continuing to carry a very significant risk of pipe failure and therefore the loss of drinking water to the township, Featherston Township. We have been working with Wellington Water on optioneering, and nothing has changed on the preferred option from the last time that we had this discussion with you. That option is the one which is listed as option 3, costed at 2.75 million as an estimate of this. And also that is the option, as you may recall, that would see us put a pipeline underneath the river of the bed of the river. We would like to progress this urgently. We would like to go to design and implementation as quickly as we can, because the pipeline is still subject to erosion and another hard winter with large items coming down that river and flow. To see something happen that would ultimately cost this council and the region a lot of money and a lot of inconvenience. Other than that, I want to take the paper as read. I'm sure you will listen carefully. And we are here to answer any questions and receive any feedback that you may have. Thank you.
Start with Councillor Olds, because he's had his hand up since the beginning.
No, I haven't. I'm just resting my head. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you very much too, because I think the report, this started some time ago, obviously, when it was identified to this council in terms of the risk that Featherston faced, losing its water supply. Robin, I got to thank you for this nice comprehensive report that you've done, and it's in plain English and we can clearly understand it. So I do appreciate that. I think when we discussed some work on that pipeline to carry us through, we bought a little bit of time, to be quite honest, because it was a significant amount of money we were talking about, and it's still a significant amount of money, which is CapEx. But I think that the time's come to make the decision to do it properly. This is going to give us a degree of resilience that we really need in this day and age, and I think the only question I'd have is the figure that we've come up with, $2.7 million. And I'm always a little bit cynical about this because how much of that is actually construction cost of work? How much is it resource consenting work and consultation work? I mean, spades in the ground is really important to me, you know, so we seem to spend an awful lot of time and energy and money on the peripheral stuff such as gaining consent and designs and God knows what, and the actual construction of the work is a fraction of what it actually costs to do the job. And is it just my way of thinking or is that the norm these days? You know, so.
That unfortunately, you know, the cost of business at the moment and the rules that we have to adhere to along a spectrum of players, including, as you mentioned, the regulator, does bring the pricing up. But what would happen from here if today the decision is to go ahead is that we would move into the detailed design phase, and that detailed design phase will give you eventually a much more granular view of the timetable and the costs attached to each of the milestones in the project. So you know, I can assure you that whatever the cost is, this table will get full visibility of the different components of that cost as we move along.
Thanks, Stephen.
Councillor Woodcock.
So, Chair, thanks, Robin and Stefan. I'm like Colin, she's probably even more dubious about these prices. I would like to know where the figures got plucked from, because I haven't seen any evidence of any quotes or anything from any contractor spoken to about what it would cost. I had a look at the job when we went on a view there. So I got a rough idea what it's going to take to do it. I personally would like to go away from Wellington Water and go out of house and get independent quotes and stuff from different contractors. It's only a pipeline. They talk about design. When you already know the specifications of the pipes, etc., the design thing's not what you'd call a major component, I wouldn't think. Yes, I'm just very dubious about these prices, where they come from, and I'd like to put out to us independently away from water.
Clarifying 2 points there. So the first point is, Stefan, you've already said that once a decision on options is made, then we collectively will be privy to a full breakdown of costs. Is there, within our Wellington Water framework, is there the flexibility, I guess, to broaden the contractor pool? I know that Wellington Water work very tightly within their approved contractor panel. Is there any flexibility to that?
Through the chair, yes, and I did speak to Robin about this morning. We can ask Wellington Water to expand that tender pool to incorporate local suppliers.
Oh, that's perfect. Wonderful. Great. Any other questions, Councillor?
ESA is speaking for me, and long discussions with Councillor Elams last night. I think it's a royal week, but we feel quite strongly that it does have to go ahead. We're rather reluctant to a large amount of money, but it seems there's no option. And I do agree from project experience, unfortunately, the biggest reason often projects do fail is because the work hasn't been done up front. But and we were very keen for the local contractors to be involved, so that's why I thought they could be in charge of the tender process. But also, Aidan and I did wonder, given the vast experience of our new chief executive in contract management, if it could be possible that she could somehow be involved in the a decision process evaluation of the contractors. I don't know if that's possible.
Through the chair, I'm not a qualified tender evaluator. There is a very technical process you have to go through. But I would certainly be working with the team on where we end up before anything happens. But I'm not a trained contract evaluator, so I can't do that.
Wasn't meaning the detail of that, but the overview of the concept.
We would do that as a team.
Fantastic. Yeah, reassuring. Councillor Maynard.
I've just got a two-part question. So with option 1 and option 2, there's two divided costs on there. Is there a reason why option 3 has no OPEX costs?
The expectation is that, once it's put down below the riverbed that where it originally was, that there wouldn't be any ongoing specific OPEX costs associated with maintaining that.
So because it's new, our expectation would be that the OPEX would actually stay at zero?
Specifically to that project, whereas if you kept it in the river, you'd have to be going out and checking it, coming back and maybe fixing the erosion and scarring.
And then
Is that a second part to your
my second question is, what was the, you've put here for option 1 and option 2 not supported by iwi, but you've put nothing with regards to option 3.
They showed no preference. There was ongoing engagement. Wellington Water are in the process of arranging a visit with Tane, and they've held discussions with Ngāti Nuni, the new general manager of the PGSE, and they are in an engagement process with the.
Because it just feels to me that we're just missing that part of the option. It's you've stated that you've and I know that there was a project group that was put in place by Wellington Water, but they haven't had any meetings at all with regards to this in quite some time. And so exactly when will that information be there to be able to give us the same details as with what is with option 1 and option 2? So are you saying that with option 3, they're not going to look at it until it's passed, or?
No,
I'm a little bit confused because
during the process of the design, but they said they didn't want it within the river, staying in the river. And so they didn't have a preference for whether it was under or on a bridge. And so we are suggesting the best methodology should be followed by the people who are designing it and engaging with the iwi during that process.
So that's when the engagement will happen, not before with
Right now.
So the diversion that has an impact on the river environment, which is more, I mean, this is pretty much a climate issue as well. What's the expectation there with the change in the river pattern by putting in this?
Temporary diversion.
So it's just temporary?
Yes.
Cool, thank you.
Right, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just want to endorse what I think Councillor Woodcock is saying, is that when it comes to the procurement process, we need to be comfortable that we are getting competitive tenders. But having said that, I will vote for option 3. I think it is to my estimation, it is the preferred option. However, I do have one little concern, and it comes from reading the engineer's report, and it also comes from the experience that we appear to have done a number of things in the past that are not very well, shall we say, are not thinking about future proofing. And I noticed the engineer comments at one point that some of the analysis that's been done did not suggest an upsized replacement of the 300 mil pipeline. And I wonder, even though it did identify capacity constraint in the future, well, if we have a capacity constraint in the future, obviously now is the time. It'll never be cheaper.
Was the capacity constraint rectified with a new pump? Was that where the...
Correct. When the original engineer's report was produced, that was prior to a modelling process that's happened more recently, which has identified that it is not preferred to upsize that pipe. The preference would be to put a pump in. So yes, back in 2022 identified that potentially you could look at a bigger pipe, but there's since been modelling work on future capacity based on the Featherston master planning, and that does not indicate upsizing the pipe. It says there would be a pump put in instead.
Would the future also look to potentials for Featherston's own water source? Because it makes sense, certainly to my non-engineering self, that our own water source would be kind of the safest future-proofed option. So I know that there's funding within this report for sort of looking at other options. It is our own water source one of those.
Well, there is the aerial mapping that's happening. However, we don't expect any results from that. Greater Wellington doesn't expect any results until 2025. Once they identify there might be a source, they'll then have to test whether that source water is actually available, and we would have to go through a consenting process to access that water.
Some time away.
Some time away. Within our LTP, there is money for strategic water source studies to be made.
Right, have we got one last question and then we'll carry on?
Can I just ask, that money for strategic water, that's for looking for water supply for Martinborough, is it?
For everywhere.
Is it? Right. So I, like everybody else, have got problems with Wellington Water tender, and if they run the process, they'll be using their process. And it'll be aligned to their health and safety regulations and to their processes, and so we'll end up with the same situation. So we need to actually get an independent tendering process. That'll be a comment for our group, because if you use the same people to run our tender, we'll get the same result.
Sorry, just
One of the questions we've got is
just clarify back with our CE. What we've been told is an ability to expand to include loads.
absolutely, but it'll be the
Have we got any flexibility to be involved with the tender requirements criteria? Is that part of the relationship and governance that we have?
I'd say.
So, through you, Chair, this council has made the decision to give that responsibility to Wellington Water. So Wellington Water are our specialists. We do rely on their procurement process, their policy in relation to this. Unless we change that, it's very, very difficult for my teams, for example, to all of a sudden become that for the region and to run a tender process, because we don't have that capability, we don't have that capacity. That now rests with Wellington Water. But that said, what I'm hearing is that there's a very high interest from councillors that we I don't want to say interrogate, that's too hard a word, that we're
And we have input into it, I think is what we're looking for. So
getting the assurance that that consideration is being given properly to assigning local contractors where possible, and that value for money is reflected through the process. We can guarantee you that we will do that, and that will happen.
I think
Is that right?
it's sort of missing the concern that I've got here. When we talk about local contractors, we've got one of our local contractors who happens to domicile in Greytown, who doesn't do work for Wellington Water because they do. Well, they are now, but when they first came out, the requirement was so excessive beyond what was always being done. And so we're not going to do this.
But they are now, so.
Yeah, but my concern is if we use, and this has been a concern that has been talked about around this table for as long as I've been on council. So this is nothing new about, I'm not talking about the day-to-day operations of Wellington Water here. I'm talking about the big project tenders that we go in that cost us a huge amount of money. If you use the same person who we've got concerned about their tendering process to manage our tendering process, we'll get the same result. And I'm not sure that
I think
that might be able to guide me a little bit here, but we've been talking about this issue for a long time now, haven't we? About our concern about whether we're getting value for money on our big tenders.
Separate issue,
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
It's slightly separate, but that wasn't what I wanted to raise either. So
so. What I'm hearing from both Stefan and the CE is that we have the ability to stretch our tender pool. There is an ability for us to have a greater level of input into some of the criteria and process, maybe not the criteria, but the process that is used here. And I think Councillor Gray is entirely correct. There is perhaps a wider issue at play here on that relationship going forward. I'm certainly conscious that whilst we have seen our neighbours use their own and completely independent process for tendering, we at our small council are not in that position, and whether that would be cheaper for us or not by the time we built that capacity is highly debatable. We wouldn't know. Councillor Woodcock.
I agree with what Alice is saying, and the one concern about the way it's done with me is Wellington Water come to us with a figure, for instance, we voted on 2.7 million, which is in public knowledge. Then you have all these contractors look at this public knowledge and say, geez, we've got 2.7 million bucks to play with. What numbers do we throw out there? Instead of actually going and getting pricing before they bring it to the council, getting contractors to look at the job and ask them what it's going to cost. Because as far as I can see, they haven't done that. They've just plucked figures out of the air, and that concerns.
Would I be correct in thinking that 2.7 is a estimated figure that involves all aspects of this job, not just the contractor?
Contractors know how it works, and they can figure out roughly what they've got to play with. They're not stupid.
No, agreed, absolutely not. I think we're in a position where we can move.
So that wasn't the point I wanted to raise. It was just following.
Okay, last question.
So the questions I've got, I note in here we're talking about trenching down to 4 metres. There's nothing in this paper that talks about the water flow at that level. And because the Whaitua process and local knowledge would tell you that even though the Taranaki River might go dry on the surface, and Jim's lived there his entire life, there's a river flowing underneath it all the time, isn't there? It doesn't dry.
It's actually,
I'd like to speak to that. You are correct, there is a Greater Wellington Regional Government water framework that identifies groundwater resources and efforts. When the engineering study that the cost is based on was performed back in 2022, Holmes Consulting, who do the geotech work, did a desktop study. They identified risks. One of the risks is that there is high groundwater, and that is actually one of the reasons why the cost estimate is where it is, because it has been identified as a risk. And so when we go into the detailed design, they will be looking at how they manage the fact that there is groundwater flow. But groundwater flow is not the same as river flow, but it will be worked into the design. And this is something that installers of pipe have to deal with at all times when they install pipe, as they will run off the groundwater. So yes, it has been noted as part of the risks that are being built into the design.
Okay, thank you. And the second part I've got to this is we keep talking about the original pipe was buried meters underground. Well, I don't know, for my life, I've been walking up and down that river for 40 years. That pipe's always been above ground. And when you say that it's moved, you know, we hear this all the time, say, pipe's moved up. Well, at what stage does how far can a pipe move before it just bursts at either end? Because the other two ends of it are buried underground. They haven't suddenly lifted up out of the ground as well. So when you tell me that it's been buried under the river, it hasn't.
It has. It was done. It was something like 6 metres.
So how has the other pipes?
So it's
You can't lift a pipe out of the.
No, it's not the pipe lifting, it's the erosion of the river.
The river's
It's gone down 6 metres.
It's gone down a fair bit.
Right, I think the debate of the river level is possibly not going to move our decisions forward. So I would like to keep us moving forward. So do I have a mover to receive the Tauwhananeka Pipeline Crossing Project Report, please? Councillor Macaulay, and a seconder, Councillor Maynard. Are we moving them together? Yes. Right, so all those in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Right, the motion is carried. That moves us to adoption of the preferred options. The current recommendation is to adopt option 3, replace the existing pipe with the recommended methodology. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Olds and seconder Councillor Gray. All those in favour of option 3, please say aye.
I'd like to abstain. I'm sorry, I just feel like when we don't have any reporting on the engagement with Ngāti Kahungunu, and we don't have anything, just for my, you know, like, I'm really sorry, but I just don't feel like
Standing, that's noted.
for myself, that I've got enough
That's noted.
information.
Okay, so all those against? Then
Find the page for the different options. What page we're on?
Quite a, yeah.
page 3. Oh, on
Page 6.
minus page.
Yeah.
Page 6.
So no, there being no votes against, that motion is passed. And the final recommendation on this paper is to release the ring fenced funds of 150,000 in the annual plan 2023-24 for Wellington Water Limited to progress detailed design on the replacement of the pipe section.
Happy to move that.
Councillor Olds and a seconder, Councillor Gray. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against? Being no against, that motion is passed.
Thank you. Thanks, Steph.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin and Yes.
Colin? State Highway 2 is not even 6 metres. So
Moving right along. Moves us to the risk pool insurance and the unbudgeted expense associated to that. Miss, do you have anything that you would like to highlight or add to your?
Through the chair, just take the report as read. I did email everyone at the time.
Yeah.
When we needed to make the decision, so this is just ratification of that action.
Yeah, nice and simple. Do we have any questions at this point? Just give everyone a minute to catch up with their papers, just so that we know where we are.
It's actually served us pretty well over time. It's
I think the only potential question that I've heard is whether or not we have any clarity at this point in time of any upcoming draw.
Through the chair, no, we don't. I think as we stated, or I have stated in the email, until risk will close those years for claims, we continue to be subject to further claims in the future if they need. They are shutting the years down, so I think we're down to 3 open years now, but until they close them off, we can't categorically state that this won't happen again.
No, good to know. We will, there being no further questions at this time, we will move on to the recommendations and we'll move them both together, receive the risk pool unbudgeted expense report and retrospectively ratify the payment of the invoice for risk pool to the sum of $47,000 from the source budget of insurance. So do we have a mover? Councillor Plimmer and a seconder, Mr. Mayor. All those in favour, please.
Could I
Sorry.
have my little 5 minutes?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Unless Councillor Plimmer wants to speak first. Okay, look, I'm going to propose a third recommendation because the issue that we're talking about here is quite well known nationally. It's been published as a result of other councils' decisions, and therefore there are a reasonable number of people in the district who know about the issue, but what they know isn't always accurate. So I saw a report somewhere recently that said all councils in the Wairarapa for $160,000, for example, which is a long way different to what we've got here. So I would like to propose that a media statement be prepared that clarifies the facts, talks about the benefits of the schemes that we are part of, and
Endorse that.
you know, you don't always win in an insurance market. This is one of those occasions.
Through the chair, I would ask what clarification you think that is going to give, because this paper relates specifically to claims for leaky buildings. It doesn't relate to the LAP insurance. So the local authority scheme that you're in for underground pipe protection isn't this.
Yeah.
This is
No, that's got nothing to do with underground pipes. It's to do with accurate information about the decision that we are making, so that number of the people who are, shall I say, speculating about what these types of schemes are can be better informed.
This agenda will be public though, so this agenda's Well, these,
Oh, yes,
this
yeah.
is all public, so there already is a source of truth coming from the council about what our position is. We as elected members can forward this to people if there's further questions.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, are you referring to things I've seen on Facebook and whatnot where people are claiming our council's $4,156,000 to us, thinking we're paying a whole lot, so it's quite good if we get the information out. No, we're actually paying 47,000, and this is what it was for and why, because I've seen some of the comments on.
Yeah, so have I.
And they are bagging the hell out of us because they think we're paying the 156 that we're Times Age had an article about that all three councils are paying, but because some people don't read these things completely, they just see the $156,000 figure. They're thinking we're paying that whole 156.
With respect, I would suggest that this paper being in the public clearly identifies that we're not paying 156, we're only paying 47.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the benefit I'm going to get by doing another public statement that isn't going to say anything different to what's in this paper, to be fair.
Would we be comfortable putting the responsibility for accurate information sharing back to the members of this council to make sure that we are
Maybe on the Times Age for putting a really good, accurate article. Good luck.
And never let the facts get away with a good story.
Exactly.
That's the motto of the Times Age.
So did you want to move your amendment to the recommendation?
No, it's not an amendment.
Oh, and
It's not
did you want to
recommended.
move?
Please.
You would, okay, so we need a mover and a seconder
For that amendment, and
Okay.
then we need to vote on the amendment.
wording? Okay, so we've currently got request that a meeting statement be prepared to acknowledge the benefits of the scheme and its details. So Martin, you'd be moving
Yes.
that recommendation. Do I have a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Woodcock?
We need to finish this one.
Yep.
So
So-
it hasn't been carried. So you've got. And
Okay,
then you've also got this.
so what we'll do is we'll take recommendations 1 and 2 first, and
You need
So
to.
had a mover and a seconder for recommendation 2. but it hasn't been-
With this, because it's an additional recommendation, you have to put all three together as an amended resolution, and then you vote whether you accept that amendment or not. And then if the amendment fails, you move back to the substantive motion, which is the original.
okay, so we're taking a vote at this point for the addition of the third recommendation.
Yes.
Okay, so all those in favour?
Sorry. I know it's been moved and seconded, but I really would like to hear the wording.
Yes, absolutely. So the wording is request that a media statement be prepared to acknowledge the benefits of the scheme and its details. So at this point, what we're doing is voting for or against the official addition of that recommendation into the pool, and then we would vote yes or no on whether we move forward. So all those in favour of the addition of the recommendation number 3, please vote.
Yeah, I'd support that.
So we've got councillor Olds, Macaulay, councillor Maynard, councillor Pitt's fine. Boss, councillor Woodcock, and and all those against, councillor Gray and councillor Plummer. The motion is carried, so that takes us back to a vote.
No,
You voted both ways.
yeah, no, I did vote onto the second way, I voted the first way. It's not making a difference, so.
Sorry, so now we are voting collectively on the substantive motion, which is receiving the report, the payment of the retrospective payment of the 47,000 and our addition of the requester report. So all those, I don't need another seconder.
No,
All those in favour,
Aye.
please say aye. All those against, motion is carried.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm a bureaucracy.
Moving right along, we're moving on to the Wellington Region Waste Management and Minimisation Plan for the 2023-2029 adoption. I believe we've got Mr. Corbett back to the table Mr. O'Connor, and councillor Gray will also be able to provide some insight on this matter as well.
I think the,
300 pages. I wonder how much rubbish is.
Hopefully I and only a few others have printed it in its entirety, so we'll keep our rubbish to councillor Gray.
through you, Chair, I think the plan is for me to speak to it with strategic support if needed. And yeah, I'd like to say I'd take the report as read, but being that it was 300 pages, I imagine there's a fair amount of skimming that went into the finer details of it. But largely what this is a regional waste management and minimisation plan that we are required to have every 6 years. Current one expired last year, and this is moving into the next one. There's been a lot of work drawing up this plan, and I've been sitting on the working committee or the joint committee for this. Wairarapa has a joint implementation plan. So our plan encompasses our council, Parterton and Masterton, and sets the targets for how our operations deliver waste management and minimisation in the region. I don't think there was too much more to it. There's some new targets in it that are part of the LTP budgets that are moving forward. A lot of this will be, or some of it's funded, some of it will be through the waste levy, as we've got different projects that come up required for it. But I think that's largely it. If there's any questions.
Councillor Olds.
Again. Thank you, Rebecca. I just, I question the timing of this plan, because it would appear, and I don't believe it's been 6 years since we also very similar, and correct me if I'm wrong.
2017 to 23 was the last plan.
Was it?
Yeah.
27.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, well, when I was reading through this, I thought a lot of it was pretty much what we had done in the past.
Time slows down when you.
A lot of it is. Yeah. And so I think recognising that waste management within our region is quite a different beast depending on what council you're in. So Wellington City has to consider how they manage their waste quite differently to how we manage our waste out here. So there's not an awful lot of change in how we're going forward. There are some things, so there's a requirement to explore, plan, implement organic collections, curbside organic collections, and that's region wide. That is up to each spot within the region to determine how that looks like and how that services their communities. And I think the big thing with our plan is that move to promoting circular economy. That's, yeah, and I think that's where we can shift the dial a lot. With our community.
Can change, actually.
Yeah, and that's a lot about community engagement, education, and promotion of alternative means. Yep.
Thank you, Rebecca. I didn't read all the pages, but I did look at the areas that.
It was a large amount. Yeah.
Oh, you should never have that.
Well, I'm sure you did neither.
Questions for councillor Gray rather than councillor Olds. Councillor Macaulay.
Not a question, but just well done, congratulations.
Thank you. I like to refer to these as my rubbish meetings that I have to go to. And I know a lot more about rubbish than I ever really thought that I would. But yeah, I think there's some clever details in the implementation plan that strike a good balance of allowing us to lift our game a little bit whilst not holding us to the same criteria that different regions have to hit. So yeah.
Can I just make a comment, because it's important that we sign off and endorse these at the end of the day. How do we, what's our communications implementation plan in terms of getting our communities on board with what we're actually doing?
Yeah, so that is in the implementation plan.
I've sort of had a quick scan over it.
So one of the things that we're sort of in the process of, depending on how the councils take up with this, the other two elected members, so Tom from Masterton and Steve from Carterton, we've been in contact about setting up a smaller governance working group with support of SLT and making sure that we've got oversight of how we're implementing these things regionally. And if there's anything that comes up that is either an opportunity for sharing services or economies of scale in terms of implementation, making sure we've got standardized education across the region, then, hopefully we'll have some early oversight of it and then can bring it back to here.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Wonderful, Mr. Corbett.
Oh, Chair, I just would like to say that management has really appreciated the efforts of Councillor Gray to champion this issue and lead this issue. And we've had a really good working relationship with Councillor. And it's kind of a model, I think, for things moving forward. I think it's
Absolutely, thank you very much. At that point, I think we can move forward to the recommendations. The recommendations are currently as a group.
Can I just have some clarification? Sorry, I'd just like to know, so the recommendation for recommendation number 2, I'm just wondering why we need to revoke one that goes from 2017 to 2023 in order to adopt, and I know I left the room for a couple of minutes, so it may already have been advised, but I just want to know why we're needing to revoke something.
That stay in place until.
It's a requirement for you.
Oh, so okay.
So they don't just
Doesn't it understand?
So they are, the recommendations do currently sit as a bulk lot. If we're comfortable moving them all together, we will take that route unless anyone shows me that they've got significant concern in that method. No, great. In which case, do we have a mover for recommendations 1 through 6? Councillor Gray, do you have a seconder?
I'm abstaining.
Mr. Mayor seconds that motion. Do either of you wish to speak further to? No, perfect. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? That being the case, the motion is carried. So we'll come to our last, well done. We'll come to the last topic of the morning and then we will take a quick break before moving into our sort of late morning session. So that is the appointments to the Community Wellbeing Subcommittee. I would probably just like to preface this by just reminding this committee that a lot of work has been done to get us to this point in terms of the structure of the committee and all of those sorts of things. So I would really like to sort of stick today to discussion on the appointments rather than reverting back to whether or not this is the right format for this group. So if we could just bear that in mind as we invite Ms. Bradley to the table, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair, and I've got a reminder about the work that's gone into it. One of the recommendations around efficiency that came out over the last few months, and I think is to make the reports shorter and sweeter. And so rather than relitigate all the background, we've included some links to the previous meetings and the previous agreements, just so that you've got visibility of that without necessarily having to write the whole story again. There has been some conversation about the potential of 3 councillors being appointed to this committee. We're open to your thoughts on this, and some of the other conversations that have been held informally are the suggestions, 1 from each ward. So I'll leave it to you to have that discussion.
Councillors, do you have any questions, particularly for Ms. Bradley in the first instance?
Just taking up your point there, I think it's probably important to have 1 from each ward. Make it simple.
I vote you.
No, no, absolutely.
Unless there's any deep discussion to be had around the split, whether it's ward-based, whether it's 3, whether it's less, I think we potentially could move to a situation of nominating the representatives from to be appointed.
I'm just wondering if there might be the possibility of having an alternate as well, just because, so that way if one person can't make it, then
I think that
they have an alternate. That's
very wise.
So.
And that's certainly what we've done at the Featherston Community Board level is have a nominee, but also have an alternate. Okay. Right. Anybody else at this point?
Can I move to nominate for the Featherston, Councillor Gray?
Absolutely.
I also nominate Councillor Gray for being the chairperson of this community wellbeing fund.
Do we get to do that at this level? Will that be?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. All right. Read down the paper. Have we got any other?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Rebecca.
We got any other nominations? If we're certainly looking at one per ward, we would be looking now for Martin Borough and Greytown.
Nominate Maynard.
And then I'd like to have nominate Kay as the alternate.
It's he's looking at you, Greytown, this side of the table. I'm not sure how we ended up with the.
Yeah, they all seem to be.
What is quite keen on over.
I've already stated I'm not interested.
I think you'd be really good at it.
Shut up.
So Bosley, was that a resounding nomination of you that I heard?
I will gladly take on this position.
We will require an alternate, so we will need someone else from.
I'll do an alternate. If he can't make it, which he will be able to make.
Perhaps that one alternate could be a generic one for the 3 wards rather.
I was about to nominate you as the Featherston alternate, Mr. Collins. Thank you for your acceptance of that.
So there's not, I feel like it's like a game of.
Councillor Butler.
Not that it's ever going to be invoked.
So we've had one nomination for the chair.
I'd like to second that.
Yeah, and I'll move that nominations be.
Who's that?
So we have now that we've got nominations for appointment and an alternate, we can just move forward from here. Perfect. So we do have a mover for the nominations, Councillor Olds, and a seconder.
Well, I can't put them on the list, so it'll have to be you, would you?
That needs to be someone who's not on the list.
No conflict here.
Is there anyone that's Colin and myself, or the Colin and the mayor? Colin and myself. Who have we got?
I move nominations be closed.
Martin, are you happy to be the seconder?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Did either of you wish to speak to? No, perfect. All those in favour, please say
Aye.
aye. Those against? That being the case, the motion is carried, and we are now taking a quick recess. Goodness. About time.
Hey, to go.
Right. Welcome back, everyone. We will resume the meeting at item B5, the adoption of the Wairarapa Class 4 gambling and standalone TAB venues, statement of proposal and draft policy. Oh, it's a mouthful. So both Councillor Bosley and I, as you're well aware, sit on the Wairarapa Working Group for Policy. But we have both Michael and Nikki with us today to answer any questions. Is there anything that you'd like to highlight at this point?
I think we'll take the report as read. I think the big thing that has come out of this process is that Masterton want to take a slightly different approach that is based on obviously the condensed, but a much more condensed CBD. Their CBD does have a much lower socioeconomic footprint, which means that outlets could relocate in that area, and they wanted to be a bit more strict on that than our option. So we've kept our proposed option the same as Carterton's, and Masterton are taking a slightly more rigorous approach to this. I don't believe there's any risk in the approach that we've taken. The main outlets that we have in Featherston, here in Marlborough and in Greytown, wouldn't be likely to move into any of those higher deprivation areas because they're largely residential. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Amanda. Does that mean that there will be two policies covering the Wairarapa as a whole? Or one policy?
One policy with a regional amendment.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just ask a question? And, I know you guys will have probably asked the same question, but why, when gambling has such an identifiable harm to a community, why aren't we adopting the stricter of the rules? Because we all know that the Gambling Foundation would say that gambling affects lower socioeconomic, which you've correctly identified here, significantly more than anyone else. So if we want to reduce harm, why are we not taking a stronger approach like Masterton?
And my understanding is when this came to council last time, so the decision at that point was this, and we voted in favour of it as it stands. Masterton at that point made the decision that they wanted a much more restrictive policy, and they made the amendment there, and which is why
it raises the question again, a bit like I was saying, surely having one approach across the district would make sense.
So it's come back to the working group, and the working group were comfortable with the regional amendment. So one policy, but with a clear regional difference inside it. I'm not sure if there is ability now for this council to amend. It would certainly slow down the process, which is not to say it's not doable, but it would mean returning back to the working group, and it would delay the consultation on this draft policy. So that's again not to say it can't be done, but that would be the act at this point. Councillor McCauley.
Yes, I can understand the frustration of that, but like the second time I'm agreeing with us, Councillor Plummer on this. I think one rule on this would be.
I think two people agree.
No, I think Councillor Bosley.
It is, I mean, the only difference is on the relocation part of the policy. Yeah, it's the same one. I think with Marsden, they've got some site specific issues that they're trying to deal with, which we don't have. And that was their major concern, was around some of those specific sites that have got.
And also a reminder.
Only the relocation part of it.
Yeah, and also a reminder that this is a draft policy that will go out for consultation. So if this isn't our final look at this, and if there was a lot of feedback that particularly around more restrictive policy on relocation for our district as well, that would be the point at which we could relook at that. So that's something to bear in mind. This is just the draft and there is still another opportunity later down the track.
Yes, I also wish to pick up the point about 1B because that's a quite strange wording. It says that no Class 4 gambling venue, or they cannot relocate. Now, relocate implies that they exist somewhere like Auckland and they now come down here. But this doesn't prevent, as I see it, a new Class 4 gambling venue opening up, does it?
Still have a sinking.
They no new standalone TAB venues may be established in the Wairarapa. So no new, and my understanding of clause B is that it's a relocation within towns. So for instance, if there was a TAB in one particular location, it couldn't change to.
The Pukimani wanted to move their TAB.
Yeah.
And according to Haven Kershaw.
Yeah. Yeah, so that can't happen.
No. But could a TAB move from Masterton to here?
No.
I don't know.
Not if it was a new TAB.
No, if it was an existing TAB and I moved out of Masterton.
Because it's no longer a Masterton.
Because they're Masterton specific.
Yeah, so B, clause 1B and 1C would prevent those things happening. I understand.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a new site. So if the Fox and Hound, it's Fox and Hound, is it? If they closed their TAB there and then wanted to re-establish in Carterton, could they do that?
No.
No, it's a it's not a relocation as within towns.
Yeah, through you, Chair, the four main changes to the joint policy for the Wairarapa are as follows. Class 4 gambling venues could not relocate in Masterton district under any circumstances. Class 4 gambling venue is one in which gaming machines pokies are operating. Gaming venues could not relocate to Carterton and South Wairarapa district, most deprived areas if the proposed location is outside of the main town centre. No standalone TAB venues could be established in the Wairarapa. No additional electronic gaming machines would be granted consent in any Class 4 venue in the Wairarapa.
So can I just come back to B, because my question sort of B doesn't seem to me to stop somebody closing their TAB in Masterton and moving it into
a main town centre.
Moving it into Martinborough.
Doesn't it?
I thought that was quite clear.
No, it doesn't.
No, it actually.
Which is most deprived.
You just can't move it into a deprived area. It doesn't mean you can't close Masterton.
Open in South Wairarapa.
Right.
Yeah.
Am I misreading?
Is most deprived. You're correct. It's the most deprived areas.
But we don't want to move. We don't want extras to move in at all.
Anywhere. Yeah.
So we actually want it to be a bit firmer.
But it's saying that there's no new standalone TAB venues may be established. I think if you're in one place and you close it somewhere else.
That would be a new one. Yeah.
You can't have.
It's the same license. It's the same license.
That's in the line.
But you would be relocating though to another borough. That will therefore be a new venue. Councillor, that is no.
Okay, but we need to clarify that, I think.
Yeah, so can I?
Hold on, through the chair, please. So
Sorry.
Councillor Woodcock.
Just to clarify, it says here to state that no new standalone TAB venues may be established in the Wairarapa. So a standalone TAB to me is a building that has a TAB and nothing else. So you can put a TAB in a pub so people can drink and gamble, but you can't have a TAB where they just go and have a bet and walk away. But they can sit there and drink booze all day and put 100 bets on a day, but they can't just walk into a TAB and put one bet and walk away.
So
That doesn't make sense to me.
all of that would still go through the same consenting process. But this is the change. This is talking about the changes to the policy. And again, it is the draft for consultation.
Through you, Chair, I think there's a little bit of confusion about, because we do have an existing policy. This is the changes to these.
To the amendments. Yeah.
These are the amendments to the policy. So the current policy says, hold on, this might be this is the new one. On page, I don't know what page of it is of the agenda. There's no establishment of new 5.1 is establishment of new class gaming venues. No Class 4 gaming venues may be established in the Wairarapa region. so you can't open a new one. Gambling venues existing or consenting as at the 1st of January 2024 and not ceasing operations for any period longer than 6 months will be regarded as existing venues and will be granted consent to continue their operations. No standalone, exactly as you're correct. We don't currently have any. This was establishing the fact that we didn't want any. Merged gambling venues, where council consents to the merger, so we have to consent to the merger of 2 or more clubs under Section 995 of the Gambling Act. They may operate an existing single venue or apply to council for a new single venue to be established. And then 5.4 is the restriction on the number of gaming machines. So we've got a sinking lid on the number of gaming machines. So a gaming machine closes, stops operating, you can't get a license for a new one. And then venue relocation, so they will not, Masterton will not have a venue relocation under any circumstances. And then we will only have one due to extraordinary circumstances. The owner or lessee of a Class 4 venue cannot continue to operate at the existing site. For example, expiration of a lease, acquisition of property under the Public Works Act, site redevelopment. So there's and then it goes on 6.3, 6.4, 6.5, and then applications for consent is in 7. So there's quite a lot of rigor around.
It is a restrictive policy. This is in no way making it easier for gambling to take place in our community. The amendments are listed under 1. And a final reminder that this is a draft policy. For the Wairarapa, open for consultation and certainly open for further debate at the hearing stage as well, during the deliberation.
Okay, so, sorry.
Sorry.
I apologise, I'm getting confused. But Amanda, could you just categorically say that as it is written, because quite honestly, there's a lot of bureaucratic stuff in there. What Councillor Plummer said, it's not possible for somebody to lose their lease or something in one of the towns in the south of Wairarapa or in Masterton and come and establish in another town under the same licence. That's not possible?
It might be a question for Russell. Do we do our licensing independently of each other? Do we do it as because that would be from what?
6.2 says they can.
Yeah.
6.2 says they can.
But that's only in Carterton or South Wairarapa.
No, what 6.2 says, if I have a licence to operate my TAB in the Fox and Hound in Masterton, 6.2, and then I lose my lease for the Fox and Hound, 6.2 says I could re-establish that in Carterton or South Wairarapa.
Yes,
that's right.
I'm worried about.
That's exactly what it says. And that's not what we want. It's not
With a sinking lid policy in our district.
that's only for gaming machines.
And it's the gaming machine.
TAB.
Sorry, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Giving you TAB. So
But
So it would
but the Fox and Hound is pub, right?
yes.
It has a TAB in the pub.
Horse and Hound.
Horse and Hound, sorry, the Horse and Hound, yeah. So I'm probably making this up, but so let's say the Horse and Hound loses their lease. He picks up his business, the Horse and Hound, and says, I'm going to relocate my business to Marnborough or to Featherstone. There's nothing in our policy that is stopping it.
Yeah, that works.
There are some parameters around that, so there's exceptional circumstances, you're right, so you can't just decide one day, hey, let's go off and move over there,
But he loses his lease, for example, his lease expires and says, I'm not going to get renewed, I'm going to go and operate down in South Wairarapa.
there are, yes.
Yeah, I would like that in my name.
But it would
Do we want those?
still become a consent process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the policy would then fall to the regulatory services to work through a consent process.
But could we possibly have the policy so we could eliminate that step of going to the consent process? If we can have a true sinking lid policy, it would seem to stop that potentially getting through.
So
Slightly different if the Pukimanu relocates their business within Marlborough, that's an acceptable thing to do because it's an existing business, but we don't want another business from Marston coming down here because they've lost their lease or the site's being redeveloped.
But because that's it's a TAB, not,
TAB?
It's got the TAB in.
it's not gaming machines.
Well, it's got both at the moment. If they turn around and said, that's fine, we won't bring the machines, but we're still gonna have operate our TAB in our pub here.
Yeah.
Like, but just move it. It's allowing that.
I think
Does actually say-
that's the intent of the policy.
It does say, it's not the intent, but it does actually say.
It does, yeah.
The intent is quite clear, but it does.
But yeah, it's not.
It's the door open.
It does say.
Yeah.
And there'll be developers and there'll be operators who will look through this and go, I can relocate.
Person speaking at a time, please.
Genesis.
Through the chair, I would go back to what the chair has already said. This is going out for consultation. I think the point has been noted that your concern has been raised. And it's definitely something that we could look to strengthen the wording for if necessary when we come to adopt. But I think at the moment, we've heard your concern that this is ready to go for consultation. So we'll get feedback from the community and then we can pick everything up when we go to adoption, if that works for you.
What does Deputy Mayor? Janice, if it goes through consultation, is there a way for it to be noted exactly what's been said? Like the fact that we have concerns over 6.2 or something like that? So then that way it's
I think it's quite clear to us as officers that you have this concern and, as Amanda said, it wasn't what we intended.
Yeah.
We wrote it, so I think it has been noted. We can go back and review the wording because that wasn't the intent.
We can take it back to the working group as well.
The trouble, you guys know what you meant, but the smart developer out there is going to go, there's a loophole.
And pick up.
We can look to strengthen it.
Have that limited our concern.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we need to move now to send this out for consultation.
Yeah, so now that we've discussed it, now currently, I'm not sure if it sits in your paperwork, but in mine, there is a bulk lot of 7 recommendations.
What page do you want?
360.
So I'll read through them and we'll go from there. So we are agreeing to make the amendments to the draft policy. So that's this, to state that Class 4 gambling venues cannot relocate in Marsden District under any circumstances. B, to state that Class 4 gambling venues cannot relocate to Carterton and South Wairarapa District's most deprived areas, those in the New Zealand Deprivation Index of decile 9 or 10, if the proposed location is outside of a main town centre. C, to state that no new standalone TAB venues may be established in the Wairarapa. D, to clearly state that no additional electronic gaming machines will be granted consent in any Class 4 venue in the Wairarapa. And this is an amendment for clarification purposes. And E, to reflect legislative or other change since the last review and to improve the flow and readability. We would then adopt the statement of proposal and draft policy for consultation with the community using the special consultative procedure, which is attached in 1 and 2. We would delegate authority to the chief executive to approve minor edits that do not change the intent of the content prior to its publication. We would note that this is a joint review of the Wairarapa Class 4 gambling and standalone TAB policy is underway. Note that the Wairarapa Working Group considered options for progressing the review and recommended that the Wairarapa District Councils adopt a joint policy for consultation with a regional variation for Masterton in relation to venue relocation. Note that the consultation with the community is proposed to take place between 21 February and 22 March this year, subject then to adoption by the 3 Wairarapa District Council. And note that the Wairarapa Policy Working Group will hear submissions and undertake deliberations ahead of making any final recommendations to Council in May 2024.
Could I ask a question on
Certainly can.
number 3, the delegate authority chief executive, what we've been talking about? Would that count as a minor amendment, given the comments?
Changes the.
But given the comment that you made that that was the intent, was not to allow relocations.
No, I don't think that's minor. Minor edits are things like spelling mistakes, grammar, those kind of things. They aren't. I wouldn't feel comfortable changing that under my delegated authority because we need to make the intent clear.
Yes. But it's noted, Boz and I sit on the working group and this policy will come back to this council for final.
Before consultation.
Before adoption.
Before adoption.
Which is normal practice.
So with all of that in mind, do I have a?
I'm not sure we're comfortable for going out in consultation at this stage. It's a little bit misleading. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm listening to the comments around. I would say that maybe we need to get that a little bit fixed.
I think through the process of consultation, probably that can be feedback that will feed it back into the working party. Surely, I don't believe that we shouldn't be making any amendments at this stage. Otherwise, it's going to delay the whole process by going back to the committee for ratification from their group.
Not so concerned about delaying the process. I'm more concerned if we consult on the way it is now. We haven't consulted the public about saying you can't relocate from Masterton to South Wairopa or Carterton. That is a significant change with what we're talking about. Because if the intent was you can't do that, but 6.2 allows you to do that, then we've got to disconnect there.
Through the chair, we need to hear from the community their views, and they will read it and make their own interpretations and give feedback on that. So this isn't a set in stone position, which is why we're seeking community feedback. So we have the opportunity at adoption to make the change. I'm not sure that it serves any purpose right now.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, what isn't clear in the recommendations is that following the consultation, what is the hearing / deliberation process that follows from it? So that's a question to someone. And I just wish to follow up a comment that's been made. I don't think doing something within a particular time frame is more important than getting it right.
Oh, I don't think we're suggesting it's more important. It is a consideration.
I just threw it into the mix, but I still think a lot of this will come out during that process. The final draft document, which we have to endorse effectively, which will, I would imagine, incorporate what our concerns are today. That's my view. And it would be pretty ignorant of us if we didn't make those amendments after.
But that's why I asked after consultation deliberations.
So it's noted in point 7, the Wairarapa Working Group will hear submissions and undertake deliberations ahead of final recommendations to council. So we will follow that process just like our own internal hearing committee would. And then a paper will come back to council with the final recommendations for the final policy for decision and adoption or other at this table.
Can I just make a comment, because I can see where Alistair's coming from in terms of when we put a document out there for consultation with the public, it should represent what council have endorsed, and obviously we need to do that for it to go to. So I can understand where you're coming from in terms of that interpretation of that particular piece that's in there. And in hindsight, maybe it is worth asking that to be amended to reflect that accordingly. I mean, I pick up on what you say. I know that it will get amended when the final proposal comes to us, because it's going to be our representatives on that committee, for instance, who will ensure that that amendment's done. But that won't be until after community have been consulted. So to some extent, we should be making those perhaps amendments now at this particular point. You can see where I'm coming from.
I'm just looking for guidance whether we have the ability. We're not changing the amendment, but rather clarifying, particularly 6.2, just to clarify that businesses couldn't move from one district to another.
I'd like to hear from,
Yes, they can.
staff as to
They can't.
what delays that may put into the process if we were to do that.
So through you, Chair, Masterton District Council has been working away in the background for the consultation to go out next week. So work has already begun on getting everything set up and ready to go. We are working very closely with Masterton, but it would delay the consultation. It is scheduled to go from the 21st of February to the 22nd of March. The hearings in April, I believe.
And just to follow on from that, noting that all three councils will be involved from April onwards. It will probably take us through till after July, I should imagine, would be the next opportunity to do some consultation.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from Councillor Gray.
Just wondering if in the interim, 6.4 kind of covers off what you're talking about. So that's within the venue relocation.
So what page were you?
So you were talking about 6.1.
Yep, okay.
Yep, so 6.4 just says not permitted where we reasonably believe that the character of the district or part of the district for which the venue is proposed will be adversely affected. And I think it will be a pretty easy thing for us to argue.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it can be, but I think at least having that in there at the moment, to my way of thinking, allows us to still follow the consultation process and then in the final deliberations, tighten up the wording around that.
I would just say one thing, it opens us up for argument, perhaps going to legal issues with it, that aside, but your comment about Masterton being prepared, this suits Masterton because Masterton have said nothing can relocate to us.
Masterton.
So Masterton could go, everything's going south, great. So, delaying it has no effect on Masterton.
So, sorry, just to be really clear, the reason that Masterton is working on it is because their policy team are the ones releasing it, not because there's any.
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. The change, but at the moment, the policy as it's written says nothing can relocate to Masterton, but the policy allows everything to relocate.
Probably at a point where we need to put our current recommendations to a vote and see where we end up. If for any reason they put the recommendations as they stand don't pass, then we can look to an alternate way forward. But I think at the moment, everyone sort of had probably several goes at positioning their point on this.
So you're asking us to endorse a document to go out for consultation as it currently sits?
As it currently sits, because they are the recommendations we hold at the moment. That recommendations are for the paper that has already come to council, that has already been approved, to now go to consultation. So we need to make a decision whether we're going to allow that to happen or to make a different way forward. Otherwise, we're just going to sit here arguing backwards and forwards with no decision made. Oh. One last comment.
Thank you. I'm a little concerned with that, Melissa, because I just feel that I really don't want to put the staff to all the extra work and the delays for consultation without a little bit more information. So I sort of feel like a little bit further discussion, I might be able to vote for it to go ahead.
What further information do you require?
I guess I'm concerned if that goes out as it is, if the involved in the consultation don't pick up that point that it potentially could allow somebody to shift from Masterton if lease expires to come into Martinborough, for example. I mean, most of the councillors didn't pick up that possibility. So if they don't put any opinions against that clause in there, have we got the ability?
That'd be where Councillor Bosley and I on the working group will and our staff who have also heard the desire for that to happen, have to put that into the policy.
But if the public don't complain about it as it is now, have we got the right to go and change it?
Yes, because we've raised it at this table as a concern of this council. Yes.
I'm happy to.
It's just a simple change in wording.
Yeah.
It's not like a big.
Yeah.
Change to policy or anything like that.
Thank you.
All right.
What we've come to.
Right, so we'll put it to the vote, and like I say, we can see where we go from. So do I have a mover for the 7 recommendations, councillor Bosley? We have a seconder.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, councillor Olds. So we're taking them as a group lot. There are 7, as I've already read, to move forward in. So all those in favour of all 7 recommendations, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those again?
I'll say aye, but could we make sure that it's noted in the minutes that?
It is noted. It is also noted with myself and councillor Bosley and our 3 staff members. So can we just take those votes? All those in favour, please say aye.
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 All those against?
No.
Thank you. Right, the motion is carried.
I've got confidence in our 2 representatives on that.
As I say, if you change.
Mine's like a steel trap, you know that one.
Yeah, you just change it from cannot relocate a master, you say cannot relocate within districts.
So we are moving to item C1, which is the Payne Estate update. And it's, do I have a mover to receive the report, councillor Maynard, and thank you, councillor Macaulay. So all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? No, and that being the case, the motion is carried. No?
You're talking about the report, so now you have to foreshadow them. There's a foreshadowed amendment.
Yes, yeah, so we've
You voted to
accept
to receive the report, not accept it.
sorry, to receive the report, yes, and now.
And I'd just like to make an amendment to the report, just for I believe it's appendix 3, so that the strategic working committee instruct the chief executive to action the items shown in the appendix 3 and the MO. It's called an MOU in the appendix, but the actual paper is called an MOA. Yeah, for the Payne Farm. So those action points to be done and reported back to the Martinborough Community Board.
So this is a foreshadowed amendment that has been submitted 48 hours before. So the movement seconder, if you're happy for that foreshadowed amendment to become substantive, seeing as how you've both either moved or seconded the report. So yes, then that becomes a substantive motion that people vote on then.
Excellent, thank you.
Ms. Bradley, do you have anything? No further to add to the report. Do we have any questions regarding the report as it stands? Mr. Mayor.
Yes, now I can't find what I'm looking for, but it's in there somewhere. And it regards the rubbish dump that's on the farm, and it talks about the council having a lease with itself regarding what happens there. I just can't get my head around how you have a lease with yourself. Not so much a question.
May need to go back through the papers then, because at some stage there was obviously an agreement there that for it to go onto the Payne Farm, that there would have to be monies received as like anywhere else, that you would be paying anyone else with it on the land. So that way it wasn't to the detriment of the.
I understand that, but we're talking about a legal instrument for making that happen. And I have no problems with the agreement.
Someone must have, because nothing's been paid for it sometimes. So.
I mean, if for example, we breach the lease, do we sue ourselves? Question mark. No, we don't. There we have 394.
Need update on
through the chair, obviously can't be in a lease arrangement with ourselves because we can't sue ourselves. but there does need to be a formal agreement about payment for service. So I think it's just the terminology at the moment that could be an issue, but obviously if you pass the resolution as it's currently stated, with the instruction for me to go and review those items in the agreement, that will be picked up at that time.
Money with Gareth Burridge.
Can I just ask a little bit of clarity in a simplistic way? Because my understanding with the Payne Farm was the bequest was that the Payne estate be handed to the Martin Borough Council in those days for administration and for oversight and for a whole raft of things, and any funds that were gained from the farm were to be distributed to various interest groups within our community, within the Martin Borough community. Now, obviously that that transferred to South Wairarapa District Council when amalgamation occurred. So South Wairarapa District Council was responsible for administering any revenue that was gained from the farm at the time. And at some point, council decided to delegate the funding element to the Martin Borough Community Board for disbursement. Now, that's a simplistic way of looking at it. That still applies to this day, or have there been other delegations that are given to the Martin Borough Community Board for managing those funds, or do they have a wider role to play in the oversight and administration, et cetera, of the Payne estate? So simplistic. Can you clarify that?
Yes, through you, Chair, we have a very outdated policy for Payne Farm, which is just about income distribution.
Yep.
So the policy is just around directing that additional income from Payne Farm and how they get that. The Martin Borough Community Board have responsibility for delegating those funds. There have been reports going back over time where the council has recommended regular reporting to the Martin Borough Community Board on Payne Farm. And there have been times when that has happened and times when that hasn't happened. But the policy is the main area that we are guided by, obviously, in any council resolutions. And so that is the next body of work that will need to take place. And that's hopefully going to have a working group shortly to really update that policy and have a little bit more fit for purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just on that note, with the memorandum of agreement and a new policy, how will those two things work together?
I can talk to that. So, because the policy was probably causing us some communication and relationship lack of clarity, the memorandum of agreement was a resolution made by council to clarify the relationship, and some of those things probably should be in a policy. Perfect. That was some of I think a memorandum, there was a little bit of debate about whether it should be in a memorandum of understanding or a memorandum agreement. Now, like a lease, you can't have a memorandum of understanding with yourself. So it was being really clear that it was agreement between the community board and council to address the things that Councillor Maynard has suggested. And there has been progress on those things. So that's not to say that they haven't been, we haven't signed the agreement and then sat back and waited. There's been some definite progress in those areas, as outlined in the report. There's still more to be done, but a policy would probably, I would expect, replace the memorandum of understanding. I've agreed, and I think it's just a holding agreement at the moment until we get the policy more fit for purpose. But that is something that you as a governing body would give us recommendation.
I know I'm not entitled to speak, but
yes,
can I just make a clarification?
You're on the strategy working group.
Okay, the lease has not been signed and it has not been settled. The community board raised the issue.
Oh, sorry.
The community board raised the issue that the council cannot be the arbitrator and administrator of the lease. And so we have questioned that. It's raised earlier. So the lease is not been signed. So there's no current lease. There never has been a lease transfer station from Payne Farm.
Thank you for that clarification, Stephen.
And it sounds there won't be a lease because we can't, there won't be a lease, so it's a,
Yeah, so I mean, we've just heard,
because we can't lease it from ourselves.
This has been significant progress has been made on the development of the lease.
Yeah.
Caused by the MCV.
That's for the farm.
That's
The farm, the,
lease.
oh.
So we're just, just
Point nine.
one at a time. So what we're looking at is a recommendation that would, that directs the chief executive to action the items identified in the MOA for Payne Farm and report back to the community board. Presumably that report would come this way as well, for our understanding.
Through the chair, given the delegation for Payne Farm sits with the community board, it would go there first. And then it can come to council or to this group for information once we have satisfied the requirements of the board, given that that's where you place the delegation for management.
So my understanding from this recommendation though, Janice, is that you will work through all of the items in the MOA to make sure that they are fit for purpose to actually move forward to a signable document. So that's what this group is actioning or not, is the next steps and the viability of the MOA as it stands. Yes. Councillor.
Madam Chair, I'm just curious about the management aspect because you just raised that. I thought the current agreement was that the Martin Borough Community Board would be responsible for administering the funds for distribution into the community. So you mentioned management. Management goes a little bit beyond the financial management of it as well. So I just want some clarity around whether or not the Martin Borough Community Board would delegated management rights for the Payne Farm. And if that's the case, then it puts a different lens on my thinking,
Clarification from our staff.
All I can do is go back to, and then since I've been on council, so when I first came on a couple of years ago, so in the 7.5 years, so right back then, the community board, and that was with Lisa and Ms. Nelson as chair. And they did have the management because that was how they were able to work through with the Waihinga Centre. So they were able to make, and they were able to make decisions there from the Martin Borough Community Board.
Financial management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that, so the financial management didn't just include grants, it actually included the whole oversight. And so that's just how the understanding has always been. However, what I would like to suggest as a possibility, I think it wouldn't hurt to perhaps see if Lisa and Pam Colenso, who has also been the chair of the Martin Borough Community Board for a long time before she came onto council, you know, and possibly Max Stevens as well, may be able to come and speak with regards to.
Oh, that'd be wonderful, yeah.
And perhaps a workshop or something like that to get a little bit more understanding, because although I feel like I've been here for a long time, I know that there's a lot of history there too. That I think most councillors would probably like a little bit of clarity too, so.
I'm just double checking with our CE the position of where we stand, because to me, what you're suggesting is, to my mind, should be in documentation. And Janice is confirming that these things will be part of what she is looking at.
Okay. And that's fine. I'm comfortable with that.
If you would, I'm more happy to.
Councillor, oh, sorry.
This just kind of feels that it's more like a Martin Borough Community Board issue than a wider council issue, like the funds go back to the Martin Community Board, that, you know, decide where the funds go. Like, you know, why are we sort of, you know, debating this at a wider forum like this? I feel that this is, you know, the best place for it to go.
Well, can I just?
Sorry, can we just let Janice comment, and then Councillor Old.
Through the chair, it's really obvious from my seat that there is confusion around this table and the community board table about Payne Farm. And what sits where and under what delegation. So I think it's really important that we get all of that information and that we understand exactly what the situation is, what the delegation actually is, and where responsibility sits. And I think we've got lots of reports and lots of information and lots of people we can draw on to get to that point. But I am hearing different things from different places, and like my staff, we want to get to one place where everyone is on the same page.
Councillor Plummer.
I have ever only voted in the way that the Martin Borough councillors have always voted, because quite frankly, this is a Martin Borough issue. Whilst we as a council have the legal holding of the thing, the distribution of that, people in Greytown didn't vote me to vote something on. This is so much, and I think it's the only thing we do in council that is so specific to a town. So I don't want to workshop on it. I'm not interested. It is a waste of my time. What we need is the Payne Farm policy put in place, which is, Janice, your responsibility.
Yep, which is the recommendation.
I don't want to work. I don't want to work party.
Mr. Mayor.
Nothing scary.
I share many of the sentiments of councillor Plummer, but I possibly wouldn't be quite so opposed to a workshop. However, I don't think this is the time for that, because if we go back 2 council meetings ago, we delegated, at that time it was the interim CD, but obviously it's Janice, to basically investigate it, get it sorted, and get an agreement with the community board. Now that hasn't changed. We're still acting under that resolution, and I'm grateful that Janice has been able to give us an update today. Thank you. So we know that it's being actioned, taken care of, and I think we just wait to see the process play itself out.
Totally.
Councillor Woodcock.
Oh yeah, I think I too agree with a lot of Alice's sentiments.
Today for Alice.
Today for Alice.
The only slight amendment I would make to what Alistair said is what we need is a policy done, which is, as he said, Janice's and her staff's job. But it has to be a policy that the Martin Borough councillors and the Martin Borough Community Board are happy with. Simple as that.
On that note.
Can I just add a little note, because I hope.
I'll let you have the very last word.
Hat on, because ultimately we are South Waipara District Council councillors. We're not just Featherston, Martin Borough and Greytown. So whatever information comes to this table, whether it affects Featherston, Martin Borough or Greytown, we collectively have to decide on that. And I think it's nice if we could just split ourselves up into our wards and vote on the things that occur in our wards. But no, it's not like that. We are collectively South Waipara District Council. So anything that happens in Martin Borough, we have a right to make a decision on as well. So
I completely agree with you, Colin, but my statement is this was donated to the Martin Borough community specifically. And I'm a firm believer, and if someone bequeaths something in their will, you stick to it.
Yeah.
The story.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I've made my point. Thank you.
Move on. Do I have a mover for the recommendation that the Strategic Working Committee instruct the Chief Executive to action the items identified in the MOA for Payne Farm and report back to the Martin Borough Community Board? Councillor Maynard, do I have a seconder? Councillor Macaulay, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? The motion is carried.
I'm 100 for 100.
I'm not about.
We're not looking at everything that's so close.
Thank you. We are up. Action items. What questions do you have for the officers on the action report? I guess take a moment to find it.
Right down the bottom.
Is page.
Amy, I'll have to talk to you about Stella on my computer because I'm not good.
460. while our councillors are looking, are there any updates that any of the officers in the room would like to share at this point? Yes.
Can I just ask if I might be able to, or Colin, you might be able to, the water races, why, given that it was never part of the Three Waters, because it's stock water, why don't we just proceed with the plan? Or at least get some, because it's still going to be separate from drinking water and wastewater anyway. It's still going to be stock water, no matter which way.
Not my portfolio, you'll have to ask Stephen.
Stefan? Yeah. Because I see in the notes here, we're pausing it to wait for the new affordable water done, whatever it's called.
Do you confirm which action item?
Action item 3898. Been going on for a while.
Long time.
So, through you, Chair. So officers prepared a report for elected members on what the options are for the continued management and operation of water races. Once a transition was made whereby Wellington Water Limited ceases to exist and that work is forced back to us. So there were different options. We could combine with Carston, we could run it ourselves, we could put it out to an external company, etc., etc. So we prepared that information, and then what we did was we sent that to a select group of councillors, including Mr. Roberts, for comment and feedback, and then that was going to come to this table. Now, what became apparent was that there was very little utility in bringing it to you when there was so much there was a real lack of clarity around where we were going with transition. Because, you know, moving it from Wellington Water to us, but then finding that we had to move it somewhere else, for example, wouldn't make a lot of sense. So with councillors' approval, limited group of councillors' approval, we paused consideration of that issue until we knew more about our future in relation to water reform, and that's where it still sits.
And I note there's an indication to perhaps close this particular action, and then any future work would come up through our future water services plan.
It would, and Chair, you know, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because if we consider that, well, it does seem apparent now that from what the government is saying is that we'll enter another period of reform within the next 18 months. So we're still in that position of, well, when we move to the transition, will we retain water races or not? And how do we continue to manage them? So it's a live issue, but I don't think it's something that has to be or could be resolved right now.
Can I just make a comment? Because I know, as I said, it's not my portfolio, but the reality is at the moment, and one of the reasons I was really comfortable with us pausing is there was too much uncertainty. But the second issue is that we've actually got an operator, a Wellington Water staff member operating and providing services to our users on that network, who's excellent, who's a person who's maintained or built and maintained a very good relationship with their customers. And I don't know if Stefan or his team were getting any complaints now, because this guy's being very proactive and doing what he's doing.
So you're not hearing any, but
no. And I just think that while we've got something that's not broken,
I'm just concerned that we seem to be tying the water races in water reform, and it's not. One is stock water, the other one is human water, and the two are not related. We created this mess. It wasn't, the government didn't create this mess. We created this mess because when we went to Wellington Water, we went, God, what are we going to do with water races? Oh, here you go, Wellington Water.
No, it wasn't that simple.
It was relatively simple. Wellington Water didn't
even hear, so but
it's not. It is not a Three Waters issue. It never has been.
No, and that's been.
Time, everyone.
Through the chair, I don't think that the Three Waters reforms were based solely on whether it was a drinking water or a wastewater issue. It also captured stormwater and drainage districts and potentially water races because they are water related activities. So I do believe it is potentially caught by Affordable Waters done well in that respect. And I agree obviously with what my officer said to you today. It would be an extra burden on us to figure out how we would deal with it in-house to then have it moved somewhere else once we know what the future for the water reforms is looking like within the next 12 to 18 months. We don't have the resource in-house to manage it, so we would have to reshape how we operate to do that.
So in terms of the officers request to close action and any future work will come up in the water services work plan, which is noted at the bottom of 398 notes. What is able to do that? Do you need it?
Through the chair, we've had issues before when we have treated these as actioned and then you felt that they weren't. So we're just seeking clarity with you that we deem this to be actioned at this point, and that when we understand more fully what the new regime looks like, we'll make sure that we pick it up as part of that process and feedback if we need to vote
on that.
It's just formally for you to say, yes, we can.
Can I just make a suggestion? While it's on an action list, it's actually on the radar still, from a council perspective. If it's taken off the list schedule, then, you know, unless it's brought to our attention again, we won't know what's actually happening. So while it's there, it's on our thinking, it's on our radar. I don't know if if you think that that's, if you've got a better way of communicating that back to council as we move through.
I think through the chair, whatever the outcome of the Affordable Waters Bill Mill strategy is, we will have to come and discuss those proposals with you at some point. So I think it will get picked up as part of that process. So I'm comfortable that this be closed.
Okay. Yep.
What is the?
I'd endorse that.
Okay, I think we'll just sort of take a show of hands because so those comfortable with closing this action item, please, can you just show of hands? Okay. Yeah. So that's everybody except for Councillor Plummer and Councillor Woodcock. So that's a majority going to action. Cool. Thank you. Any other questions on any other items? Councillor Gray.
So just two of them. So 407. I guess the issues with that is it now defunct Climate Change and Environment Committee. So I don't know if that wording around that needs to change. And I guess in terms of where that's moving, an email was sent to elected members and the other two councils around establishing this, and there hasn't been any reply or feedback as of yet.
Might want to send a reminder.
What's that?
You might want to send a reminder.
Well, I think.
Sorry, Rebecca, I know that I was going to make comment, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, if there's not any obvious appetite or capacity from the other councils, is this something that we just need to have sitting open indefinitely? Or should this particular thing be closed, and if another opportunity to work collaboratively with them in this sort of field, we could reopen it at that point or build a new one?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I think it is possible that the letter went out early enough in the year that a number of people might not have been getting into their emails at that stage. And often things that go to a lot of people, many people assume that somebody else will answer it and what have you. However, next Monday, Melissa and myself are having a joint meeting with other mayors and deputy mayors. And if you were happy, we would bring it up there and see whether there was a.
Be happy with that?
Give it another.
Another nudge.
Oh, you had a second?
Yes, the second one was for item 409 around the development of a no-mow policy. And I note that it's been included in here as there's no new developments as it's a low priority. I wonder if there is potential for us to think of a more creative way to progress this rather than just leaving it within a group that's already has their hands full. And I kind of wonder if there's something like a community action group that we could put together that could do some research and offer some guidance and so that it's being driven more from the community rather than just resting.
Could you refresh my memory on what this one's about?
This is the no mow policy. It's councillor Bosley's baby.
Yeah.
My two hills I'm prepared to die on.
It kind of links into some direction that we've had from the community, Featherston Community Board as well, around identifying places that we can, you know, instead of having to mow it down to flat grass that doesn't absorb water particularly well and dries out, and, you know, to have the opportunity to allow some rewilding or allow wildflowers to grow, or
native plantings, etc., to help with drainage and cost savings, climate change savings.
So particularly because this did come from a members report, and it is certainly a passion area for the Featherston Community Board as well. It would be nice to find a way forward to make some progress, and I understand workflow and whatnot and priorities, but I wonder, like Councillor Gray suggests, if there is an alternative way forward.
Well, I'd like to make a suggestion, because I had a interesting meeting a couple of weekends ago with some people who, for example, were familiar with Councillor Bosley's motion, and what they pointed out to me is that in spite of that, we currently have a bylaw, and I have to say I was not familiar with it, that is actually very, very restrictive on what happens with council berms. And so it seems to me that whatever happens in the future, at some point there has to be a review of that bylaw. Otherwise, nothing along the lines that Councillor Bosley suggested.
That covers overgrown vegetation, obstructing a footpath or something, I think.
Stop signs and things like that, so it's about.
Yeah, I don't think.
It's about site.
Sorry, Mr. Corbett has some addition to that.
It's actually, Mayor's correct, it's actually a little bit more restrictive than that. Members of the community have asked over time whether they can plant gardens, vegetable gardens or flower gardens, or whether they can till their berms, or whether they can plant trees, large trees, several trees in their berms. We get a wide range of requests to do all kinds of things with berms. And the bylaw protects from that. So, you know, it's about making sure people don't plant things which then the root systems interfere with underground services. Right. It's about making sure people have access, so people using the pavement can, and the berm can continue to have access. And it's also about the community, you know, like the community gets very upset if the grass is that long, you know, we don't know how they would react if it was different. And so the bylaw actually is along those lines. So if we were to make a final determination, we'd have to amend the bylaw. But I really, if I could just make one more comment, I really like the idea of the community potentially picking this up. And what I see happening would be maybe a street, you know, the community in Featherston or wherever agree amongst themselves that they'll have a no-mow policy on the street. And let's you know, see what that looks like, see what the response of people is. That would be a wonderful way of seeing whether, you know, whether it works or not, and then we could learn a lot from that.
Fantastic. So I think that is great, and I will come to you, James. I think just to be really clear, there are two separate but connected things there as well. So one is the no mow policy, which Councillor Bosley brought to this table around allowing some rewilding, particularly in trialling that in council spaces. The second is the berm policy, which would, or the idea of berm planting, which is a passion area for particularly Featherston. So that is the idea that berms could be planted with perhaps fruit trees or native vegetation. So whilst connected, they are still separate. And I do think that both could be tested, which was councillor Bosley's recommendation in a community-based way to move them forward. But James.
Thanks. Can I just add to that and suggest that personally I don't have anything against this or anything. To me, it seems about solutionising. We've got some proposed work in the LP overarching around asset management. And I suggest that this is picked up as a distinct piece of work to fit in with that. Because fundamentally we're talking about an asset that just happens to be grass and turf grounds. What we do or don't do with that is part of that investigation, much like we do with the playgrounds, buildings, cemeteries, etc. I've got no issue with what Stefan's saying about trialing and testing things, but we don't want this piece of work to drop off. And I suggest that it's incorporated into that wider look, their asset management in the community space.
Good idea.
Good idea.
Councillor Macaulay.
Sad to see, I to agree with Stefan that it's a fantastic idea to have a small trial because I mean I think it's a great idea in theory, but just in terms of there's just so many restrictions in terms of water use for this type of thing because I mean really most of the booms around here at the moment need grass.
So that's the point, we plant drought resistant plants in there that don't need watering.
Well, you're right, but I've got a very large garden and I've got, you know, even desert type grasses at the moment struggling to survive unless I'm watering them with my allocation of watering days. Yeah, so I just think the trial to get something that will work without using our water resources is a really great idea to try it forward.
Well, I mean, the idea would be that we'd go to people who know about these things and get their suggestion on it rather than going to the garden centre.
Yeah. But also like Stephen, I said, I think to, you know, to get the community reaction to it and things like that too. I think it's a great idea to do a trial.
Right. So councillor Maynard.
So one of the things that I actually really liked about this was the other councils that had tried it in the past and they'd chosen spaces that had you know, the small creek but that sat on council land. So being able to try these around there prior to rolling it out, because you certainly get that buy-in when you're trying it on those on somewhere like that. So where we might have like a little area that's already got some kind of water, you know, that we can start planting and not mowing and try it from a council perspective, which when you showed it to us, that was where we were able to actually gauge how a council could do it. So, I mean, I think it would be really nice to
very good
have an area.
Right back to what James was saying. My concern looking at it on the action plans is that it's just sort of identified as a little piece of work that is of low priority. But if we can tie that into broadly how we're looking at our assets, and also noting that we didn't invent this. Like there's lots of councils that have got,
doing it.
You know, and when you do it and with a long-term sort of lens over it, it links into a lot of the work that different community groups have. Like I know we have the Paitamokai nursery that grows very local, very local seeds and I think there's space for some really cool things that we can do here. And I think when we just have it as a little policy that falls off, I think linking it into James is really keen to do heaps of work on this. So right.
We also have an area just in Martinborough that has been planted by a group that came to the Martinborough Community Board, and we were able to guide them to both Kohunui and Paitamokai because they are growing plants that literally, you know, are from here. And they've been making a little track by Todd's Road, which is, you know, like just that corner there that's by the part of it was the golf course. So but it's right off. So it's not part of it, you know, like it's not actually on the greens or anything like that. But making a little walking trail. And so they've gone out and been able to do that, and they made it a real community event, so people were able to go. But it probably wouldn't have, like if anyone wants to go and have a look at it just to get an idea about, because it's definitely no-mo.
The way
So Councillor Bosley, final word.
Only the final, we're something to say the Waihingi Action Group, they're doing volunteer planting on Waihingi River at Greytown now, and you know, they're doing great work out there. There's a plant through there along the side of the walking trail.
Yes, that's such a good place to start.
It is.
Councillor Woodcock.
So we finished on that?
Yeah,
Right.
we're moving on. Your next,
Lovely. There's two here, 445. I believe it's the next one finished. We can sign that.
5, the
Yes.
Farley, that's a goner.
That's a, yep. In 281, can we have an update on that, please? Where we're at?
What number was 281?
Great on board. Gone but quiet.
No. Mr. Corbett, the Greytown board, we got any updates there?
Through each year, that spoken report's not due to March, and then it'll come back,
Cool, thanks.
So waiting till next month. Councillor Plummer.
469.
That was gonna be mine. Okay.
Well, you can take a look. Well, you got-
No.
Okay, so if I recall, Woody's and Boz's report was very clear that, we wanted to use that for community use and to get proposals for that. And we had two fantastic presentations, if you remember, about using it for art displays and so on. And I understand there's been an art display.
Is
I understand
currently,
there's been a revaluation of the property, but that doesn't change the underlying fact that that is a fantastic community facility that, the proposal from my two fellow councillors is still very much the view of the Greytown area. And I think it's endorsed by the community board as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, since this has gone out, the overwhelming community support for it to be used and continue as a community space is overwhelming. It's huge. Just on Facebook alone, the art exhibitions I opened, his worship was there at the last one. The current art exhibition has been phenomenally successful. It has been, as a community of artists and workshops and other things, all those things that we kind of identified, it's happening. And I think in terms of, you know, what we could get as a commercial space against the value in terms of non-commercial dollars, what the community gets out of it far outweighs that. And yeah, we're seeing great community use of that space. And that's what the idea was, not for it to be put out for commercial expressions of interest. That was never.
Totally agree with you there, boss.
Sorry?
Janice, are you able to confirm for us the expression of interest process? Is that's open to all and anyone? And then the evaluation and decision making for who would win that lease, who makes that decision, please? It'll be a decision of.
We talked about this as the team and we felt it was a decision that needed to go back to the council table.
So council will be presented with the information on who applies, and it will be this council's decision who is awarded the lease.
Just think it's muddied the waters though, because the latest thing that went out asked for expressions of commercial interest as well, and that was very much against what the community was after.
Through the chair, there was a subsequent amendment to that resolution at the following council meeting that you passed that said to move to expressions of interest, both commercial and non-commercial.
I don't remember that. So I was away.
Yes, I just wish to endorse exactly what the CE has said. It was discussed at a council meeting. The agreement was to seek expressions of interest. I believe that the process has still got another, I think, 2 weeks roughly to go, I think. And certainly in the heading that's on the website, it talks about expressions of interest, leasing opportunities. I don't believe it particularly focuses on commercial versus non-commercial. It talks quite strongly about these buildings are landmarks. They're more than just buildings. They're the heartbeats of our town. we're waiting for your creative vision to bring them to life. And it also refers to the old courthouse in Featherston. I actually thought it was a very excellent expressions of interest. Give us your proposals, actually, and very much in line with what this council, I think we will find, unanimously agreed at the council meeting.
Mr. Corbett.
I just through you to reassure councillors and Councillor Rosling in particular, getting this work, that there's absolutely no resistance from management to the building being used for community use. In fact, if there's a community use that's identified that finds favour with the community and with this table, we'd be thrilled for that to happen. There is no fight here from management. All we've been doing is following the instructions of the council and making sure that we get the full range of people coming forward to tell us how it might be used commercially and how it might be used from the community, because a lot of the suggestions that were discussed in Councillor Crosby's paper were blends of commercial and private use. There was entrepreneurship, there was business hub, there was lots of things which would suit a private company, and then there was a whole lot of other stuff which would suit community use. And all we're doing, all the team's doing here, and I want to provide you that reassurance, we're just getting as much information as we can from you. And then we will come back with options and we'll explore those with you. But there is no resistance at all to community use of that building. It doesn't exist.
Thank you. All good on the action reports. No further action report questions. Right, we will move to item D1, the chairperson's report. So my report, I can talk to it. There are a number of recommendations that essentially all apply to this committee. I'll take the report as read, but I would, the only thing I would like to speak to is just verbally saying my heartfelt thanks to you all. Last year, pretty much in its totality, but definitely the last part of it was very difficult for myself with my mum's illness and her passing, and the support and kindness that each of you and all of you collectively as well showed to both myself and my family was invaluable to me. And so I thank you for the space and grace that you showed me during that time. Moving on to the recommendations, they're quite clear. I'd ask that you receive this report. We appoint Violet who sits on the Māori Standing Committee to this committee as the Māori Standing Committee representative. We confirm the portfolio leads and the strategic leadership pairings as part of this committee structure that to be done. We agree the frequency by which those portfolio leads report back to this committee. And that is based on the fact that this committee meets monthly. And I'm not convinced that there is a need for those portfolio needs, or certainly the time frame allows for them to report every month. I think it makes much more sense to have a rolling reporting schedule for them. That we direct the CE to arrange the schedule of regular meetings for the strategic leadership and portfolio lead pairings in line with their reporting frequency to make sure that they happen and that they're on everyone's calendars, and that we agree that the chair and portfolio leads complete their ACONA chairing meetings training before the next committee meeting. And as you'll see in my report, that whilst that training was part of the chairman's sort of reference for this committee, I'd certainly encourage and welcome all of you to get on board with that training as well. It is very short. It's not lengthy, so don't be too concerned. Are there any questions?
Are you, what, I just had a look at the Aquana information and it doesn't actually say when or.
It's online and it can be done anytime. So if we get agreement that that's the way forward, we would schedule it. And I would imagine it would be a Wednesday either before or after otherwise scheduled meetings, because it is nice and short.
Yeah, awesome.
It's old.
I just have a quick question in terms of our planning and regulatory group, which is really a part of the committee of the whole. And I met with Russell the other day just to talk about some of the things that I consider to be important that for information sharing for councillors. We don't have a separate terms of reference for that. That's combined with the terms of reference of the committee of the whole. Is that?
My understanding is that you're a portfolio lead for that planning and regulatory space. So that this committee will agree that pairing and your frequency, and then you will report back. I don't believe that you have a working group or terms of reference.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I just wasn't clear on. Thank you.
I can't vote on this until someone actually tells me who the portfolio leads and strategic leadership pairings are, because no one's actually.
Oh, okay. I think they were in the minutes of the last council meeting, but the infrastructure portfolio lead is Aidan. The planning and regulatory portfolio lead is Councillor Olds, and the community climate and environmental wellbeing portfolio lead is Councillor Gray. So the natural pairings for those are as listed. So
what about the finance?
There is not. There is the finance, insurance and risk committee exists, so there's no portfolio lead, so they.
Together those. Yep. Who's the chair of that? You Morris, Bruce. So
And then, sorry, yes.
Just with regards to, sorry, I don't know if this is the right place to ask it, but with regards to the strategy working committee, is this, will we still be having council meetings as well on top every 8 weeks? I'm just a little bit confused because if this is in its place, to be able to put acknowledgements and tributes.
So there are council meetings still take place. So we've got a council meeting next week, and you would have received the schedule.
Yeah.
Am I correct in thinking that most often meetings happen of the week after? So we'll meet and then the council meets the week after. Other questions?
Very good. Thank you very much.
Right.
Chair.
We'll now move on to the recommendations. Do I have?
Seek your indulgence. I've just gone back over the minutes about the Stella Bull issue, and I've just found the minutes, and they are on the 22nd of November.
What's the Stella Bull issue?
Oh, is this?
This is, yes, yeah.
So going back to C2.
Going back to the action item on the use of the Stella Bull building and Stella Bull Park. And I know.
Can we hold that? Can we do this and then circle back? Yep. Perfect. No, me both. So we'll move on to the recommendations. Do I have a mover to receive the chairperson's report? Councillor Olds, and a seconder, Councillor Maynard. All those in favour of receiving the report, please. Aye. All those against? No. Great. Now we'll move the recommendations. So recommendation 2, appoint Violet Edwards to the Strategy Working Committee, confirm the portfolio leads and strategic pairings, agree the frequency by which portfolio leads report to the committee, direct the CE to arrange the schedule of regular meetings for the strategic leadership and portfolio lead pairings, and agree that the chair and portfolio leads complete the Aquana chairing meetings training. Do I have a Move it.
Like to move that.
And a second, councillor Bosley. Either of you wish to speak to that?
No, this is a really good report. This is
Right.
absolutely fantastic report, and that's all I'd like to say.
It was great reading, thank you.
Yeah. You. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. So we will circle back to the action report. You've got the minutes from the November 22nd meeting, councillor.
Yeah, and so they were, it was discussed at the Infrastructure and Community Services Committee, and then those minutes were submitted to us on the 22nd of November. And it said, seek expressions of interest on the use of Stella Pool, Greytown Old Library building, and in the meantime, the building be advertised for a venue as hire. I think those minutes are slightly misleading because the conversation was all about community use, expressions of community use for, as opposed to, I think it's been interpreted as commercial or wider. And that was never the intent of the conversation. So you're right, Martin, it was discussed, but it was a very narrow recommendation.
I think the others.
Interpreted in the minutes.
The wording and the actions here are a lot more probably on par with what was said to what's, yeah.
So I think there's.
Which I've already highlighted in the single email.
Yeah, so there's two things I think. So one is making sure that we as a council are very clear on the recommendations that we make so that we understand them and our officers understand them in the same way. And the second thing I just wanted to point out is my recollection is that this motion came to a council meeting as well as the infrastructure meeting.
Yes, it did.
So they were recommendations. Yeah. So
It's bounced up.
any change to the wording of the recommendations in the movement?
Yes, there was.
There was.
There was.
That's what was proposed. So
This is number one.
so seek expressions of interest in the use of Stella Bull, Greytown Old Library building, and in the meantime, the building be advertised as a venue for hire. So there's no specification either way as to community or commercial.
Conversation was around community use.
Yeah, so if I go back a little bit, so Mayor Connolly noted that there were resolutions relating to Stella Pool, Greytown Old Library building usage, which were passed at the Infrastructure and Community Services Committee meeting for the inclusion of in the report, but had been missed with due to administrative error. This was discussed with council prior to the formulation of the resolutions. The resolutions were council resolutions, but in that meeting, we had a lot of discussion about the use of that building. And the resolution was actually about community use of the building, not to seek community use options for community use.
Which brings.
Remember, we had two presenters come and about their different visions. And that's
brings me back to making sure that our recommendations are clear and tight, because ultimately we vote on the recommendations, and if they're not, if we look at them and they don't make clear, they're not tight enough, then our recommendations may not be enacted in the way that we intend them. So I, as the chair, I feel there's a definite responsibility on us to make sure that we tighten up those recommendations.
So for example, making an amendment, if we see like that, if we're looking at it and we're going, well, this isn't actually getting.
Doesn't 100% say what we're saying. It doesn't say that we want expressions of community interest.
Well, lesson learned, that's for sure.
Yeah.
well, is there some way that we can resolve this now going forward, Janice, to fix this and bring it back on track?
Through the chair, I would strongly recommend that if you want to foreshadow amendments, you do them run ahead of the meeting, not at the meeting, because one of the unintended consequences of making amendments on the day is that we don't necessarily have time to think through the wording to make sure we capture the intent correctly.
I'm not suggesting we amend that because that's passed, that's done, but it's because it's an action item. We can change how we deal with the action item, can't we, without a...
Well, I think that's what we discussed earlier, is that all of the expressions of interest will come back to this table for a decision. So presumably at that point, that's when each of us will get to weight the importance of community versus commercial in that decision.
If I put a business person's hat on, and I'm going to put in a lot of work to put in a proposal for me to hire that building, that's wasted work for them if we have no intention of actually giving it to them. So,
But you're making a predetermined decision with information you don't have
Yeah.
yet.
but the point was we wanted community use of that building. That's
So if we get no interest from community, then what do you leave it vacant? So if we've got interest from the community in terms of commercial and none for community groups and organisations, you're saying we block the commercial activity in there altogether and leave it vacant?
No, I'm not.
Well, that's what you're suggesting. I mean, you just made it clear that.
Yeah, and maybe we can incorporate the two together and get some revenue in too.
Which is what Buzz suggested, you know, that there was interest.
I've never seen it all, that all should be provided for free.
Yeah.
Anything that goes in there, it's back way.
Yeah, sure.
It has to be a community-based activity.
Yeah.
That's what's currently being proven by the art exhibitions that are in there and have been in there since late last year.
I'd encourage anyone who hasn't to go and check out
Yeah, go and have a look.
how it's sitting around, but we
Really.
have,
And it's,
do have a process.
it's not Great Tap, right? It's Wairarapa. There are artists from all over
Yeah,
Southern
yeah.
Wairarapa that are in there. Marlborough has this, Henderson has community space, Greater doesn't have one. Right, and Silver is kind of being used as one, and it's just paying dividends. I mean, the community loves it, and there's artists from all over that are coming in to exhibit there.
Yeah,
It's not just a great unfocused activity.
it's fantastic.
No decisions have been made yet, but we must keep an open mind on the process that is currently open.
Is that your stomach rumbling, Colin?
Was that what it was?
Well, it's very late for her.
Hell, it is. It's nearly 1:15.
Try to have it like more.
We're now moving on to item E1, the appointment report from Destination Wairarapa. It's very brief. Have we got any questions for Mr. Hogg, who is not here to answer?
Maybe we received the report.
Receive, you can receive. Yeah, so thank you, Martin. Have you got a seconder to receive the report?
Yeah.
Councillor Olds, all those in favour?
Aye.
Say aye. All those against? No. The motion is carried. The report is received. There being no question, we'll move to close the.
He wasn't actually on until 12:20, so he might just be not.
Alan's not coming. Alan's not coming.
Oh, there you go. So he's put in his apologies.
So great.
Just wanted to throw back to what you're saying about a space for acknowledgements. This might be a nice place to put that, even though it's not on the.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm happy to bring it to the council anyway.
Are we going to close with it?
I'm happy to do it. Just clarifying. No, so I'm happy to open the floor to acknowledgements, tributes, if there are any before we close, please.
So look, I'd just really like to acknowledge the wrapping up of Fab Feather. What a fantastic group that was put together, and the work that was done for the Featherston community from them. And I just want to take my hats off and to actually acknowledge all of their amazing mahi that they put in. And I know that they've finished now, that their wrap up was at the start of February. I also know that you've got the Wahine Unite coming up this Saturday, which looks absolutely fantastic as well. And
it's not just for women, you men, you can come.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the skirt on.
Everybody, they've combined it with the sports.
Yeah, sports hub open day.
So it's, I mean, but it's just, it's so wonderful to actually see that kind of continuing as well. And and everything that, like with regards to the community, the gardens, that, you know, the community garden, that's, I just think that what a fantastic lot of work that was done. And so I just wanted to take my hats off, you know, to them and acknowledge all of the hard work that they did over the years. Yeah, sure.
Councillor Fleming.
Sorry, any other tributes or ones it's separate issues? The minutes of the agenda for the next council meeting is, I was just wondering why the dog thing is that because it was just finished and had to put it somewhere? Because normally that would now come to this committee.
So that was my decision. I have made a hard stop on paper dates. And if they missed that agenda, they go to the next one. So it missed this.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Council.
Okay.
Because it is the only paper in the council.
Yeah.
So Do we want to just hold it over to the next strategy meeting and then just deal with the one next food issue?
Yeah, so that agenda for next week has been shared with us, but it hasn't been publicly released yet either. Either the open one or the public excluded one, obviously. On that note, Councillor Gray, would you like to do a closing karakia?
Una hea, ki te uru tapanui, kia wātea, kia māma, nāko te tinana te wairua, e te ara takata. Koera e rongo, whakairea, ake ki ronga, kia tina.
Tina.
Haumea, huie.
Taiki.
Well done, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.
Very much.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful pronunciation. Amazing.
Oh.
I'll tell you later.
Just live, we're still live streaming, just